Hey guys, this is the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for June 25th, 2025. We're going to talk about some fantasy football stuff today, specifically rookies and their hit rates as it comes to that in the NFL, and then look at some rookie rankings, and then perhaps do a best ball draft if we have time at the end. Before we get into everything and intro our guests for tonight, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. I have the new shirts. I have Watson and Tucker massage parlors. And then we see a CD massage parlor, and it says, "Get your happy ending today." We have that and everything else at the merch store. I'm actually pretty happy with the shirt. Just came today, actually. You can see it here. You can change the color. You can get it in hoodie. You can get it in long sleeve t-shirt. You can get it in tank top. We have everything here. You can change the colors and everything. So we have our mugs. We have our famous apron. Everything's 20% off. So it's a good sale right now. I took advantage of that sale, by the way. Jerks of the College Years in my recent book. You can get on Amazon. I made fun of people I saw at Penn State. It was a blast to write. I think you guys would like to read it. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. What's the shirt? It's the massage parlors, Cassandra. As you can see right here, I will pull it back up. Where is it? Here we go. Here it is. I'll do a close up because it might be a little too small. Watson and Tucker massage parlors. Get your happy ending today. And we have a picture of a massage parlor, a very seedy massage parlor, and massage is spelled wrong in the picture intentionally. So you can get it in pink, you can get it in red. Like I said, you can get it in all colors here. Lots of options here. You have you can get a toddler. You can get that for a toddler. That'd be fun. I don't think they do a preview for it, but you can get it in toddler. So super chats, super stickers, the best way to support the show. It would be really appreciated. Stu and John Sanders have been the best with their super chats, super stickers. Also, Can't Make an Eagle, Degeneron, Karmic, Armac, The Boss, Evan Daniel. You guys have been so great with your contributions. I can't say it enough because YouTube has really paid off things. So Sandra's saying, hey, Ben. And that is our guest for today, Ben Wasley. Let me pull up the site here from FFDFantasyFootball.com. Ben, how's it going?
Good. Happy to be back. Enjoying. I'm on holidays at the moment, so loving life. Just happy to talk about fantasy football. It's good to actually have a little bit of time to decompress, think about, and get ready for a big draft season coming up, I reckon.
Yeah. It's coming about a month and a half from now. It's usually like the mid-August is when people start the fantasy drafts. Unless you're crazy like me and do best ball drafts. I think I'm up to like 70 drafts already. It's like, why not? I do it at night. I think that night is the best time because I think like when people wait for a draft to start, I think some of them might like fall asleep. And so they go and auto draft. And so like I feel like I get better teams that way. Or when I'm watching the kids, like something might come up, so do like a $3 draft. So just in case I have to stop doing it. But yeah, that's what I've been doing the past 2 months, actually longer than that. So yeah, I'm eager to get to talking about this with you. So we did this last year, and I'm really interested in seeing how this is stacked up because we had a bunch of we had a great rookie class last year. So I want to see how this changed, and for the people who didn't watch it last year, just to kind of get introduced to this. So this is a quarterback hit rates for rookies. And obviously we have one in the first round with Cam Ward. Oh, we had two in the first round, but one at the first overall, Cam Ward at the very top. So do you want to like kind of intro this and explain what this is and what the analysis says here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I basically went through the last 20 years or so of draftees. Basically, everyone drafted into the NFL in the last 20 years. I looked at two things. I looked at their best fantasy season, so their upside essentially, and I looked at their longevity, which is to say how many years they were at least a top 30 quarterback or a top 60 running back or wide receiver. To try to get an idea of roughly what we should expect from this year's rookies. I didn't include last year's guys yet because I just don't think that 1 year is a big enough sample size, but I think we can reasonably infer what we should expect from guys like Williams and Daniels and May, and that they certainly look pretty good from what we've seen of them so far. So I basically broke it down based on when players were drafted. So were they a top 5 pick? Were they like top 16? Were they late first round? Were they second round, third round? And basically using that to predict what will happen with the guys coming up. And it is a pretty consistent exercise. You do find that over the years you get roughly the same rates going through. So we roughly know what percentage of these plays are going to turn into superstars. That is to say, They've had a top 2 fantasy finish. They've been around for at least 7 years, and so on. You can see the categories down the bottom there. And I do find it's a very easy way to compare the rookies to what we've already got in the league and try to value the rookies, especially in Dynasty, compared to every other position.
Yeah. So, like you said, you didn't add the rookies from last year. I feel like you could definitely do Jane Daniels' hit rate already. You know, I guess you don't know if you're going to put him superstar or stud, but he's definitely up there. The other guys, I would say, not really sure. Like Caleb Williams looked good at times last year, but then he had these brain fart moments, like we saw twice at the end of the Thanksgiving game, and then a few weeks later against Seattle on Thursday Night Football. Drake May, he didn't play the first third of the season. He came in, he had some good moments, but then again, he had some very bad moments as well, which you would expect out of a raw guy like that. Michael Penix Jr. played only a few games at the end of the year. JJ McCarthy missed the entire season. Bo Nix, actually, I thought he definitely exceeded expectations, but that's not to say that he could just regress. I mean, we saw Mac Jones a few years ago look like the best rookie from that class, and he ended up being pretty terrible. So you don't really know, but yeah, you're looking at quarterback hit rates in the top 5, and it looks like they're all usually pretty good. I mean, it's more than half are fantasy starters or better. Now there are 10% bust rates, and you have the Trey Lance, Jamarcus Russell, Vince Young. Trey Lance just hasn't really played very much. And then brief boom, Robert Griffin. He had the injury, and yeah, I mean, I guess the jury's still out on Stroud and Young at this point. But yeah, it looks like it's a good news for Cam Ward, right? I mean, you would expect based on this data that there's more than 50-50 chance that he would succeed.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. It does seem like he's at least going to have a good long runway to succeed. It looks like the team will give him a couple of years at least, assuming he's looking at least feasible. And he's going to get plenty of opportunities. We kind of saw that sort of idea happen with Bryce Young, where even though he looked rubbish early on, he still got opportunities. And you've got to feel like even if Cam Ward's rusty to start with, they're still going to give him plenty of opportunities. And that's what you want for your dynasty players. You want a guy who's at least going to be starting in the long term. Cam Ward's not someone I'm targeting in a 1 QB league, but certainly in a super flex league for dynasty, I feel like he's someone who at least gives you good security and also pretty good upside if you're looking for a quarterback.
Yeah, I feel like I've taken him a lot in best ball, like as my third quarterback. It just feels like he has upside as guys who could score touchdowns on the ground. I like that. I liked hearing that he is he's like he's getting to practice a lot early, like very early. I heard like 4 a.m. He's like, I think that's like kind of insane, but it's good to hear that he's pretty like focused and looking dedicated to his craft. Whereas you hear some rookies, like Blake Bortles, he was like a party animal. Like it didn't seem like he really cared about football. You heard that about some other guys, like Robert Griffin. He was kind of infamous for not working very hard and not studying film. I think it was Jamarcus Russell. I could be wrong. I think it was Jamarcus Russell where they gave him a tape and they put like a $20 bill inside and they just gave it to him and he brought it back and they're like, "Oh, did you watch this?" And he's yeah. And then the $20 bill is still in there. So I thought that was pretty telling. But I was looking at my exposure. Cam Ward I have as my 5th highest owned quarterback at 22%, which kind of goes to show that like you can get him like super late. He could be your like 3rd quarterback.
It is really interesting because in most positions, people just love the rookies and they want any opportunity to get rookies on their team. And we see that even with the later rookies, with guys like Jalen Milroe, people are still reaching for them in best ball drafts. And yet with someone like a Cam Ward, which we know is going to have a higher hit rate, people are like, nah, I don't really know. I think I'd rather take someone I know a little bit more about. I feel like Ward at least has that upside. And for that reason, he's a lot more exciting than most of the other rookies around.
I'm glad you said that. Like he's going so late. He's going like late 13th round, sometimes 14th round. I don't understand it. Like he has rushing upside. He was the 1st overall pick. Maybe like there's no exciting receivers outside of Ridley on that team, but I don't know. I like the offensive line. I think that he should do pretty well. I don't think he's going to be a superstar as a rookie, but I think he could be at least a good backup on your list there. Maybe even a fantasy starter if he runs for a lot of yards. So. I definitely like Cam Ward, and I'm glad your data backs it up. So the next slide, picks 17 through 40. So the bottom half of the first round and the top half, or I guess top the quarter of the second round. Well, before we do that, do you want to explain like why you did like picks 40 instead of like 64 or something, like why 40?
It seemed to be the way when I went through, it seemed to be the natural spots where the data kind of broke up. It seemed like you had a lot of similar players from like around pick 16, then all of a sudden in the second half of the first round and into the first half of the second round, all of a sudden you started to get a different style of player with different outcomes. It really does make a difference whether you're going between 6 and 16 or 17 and 40. You end up with a far higher floor, at least, from 6 to 16. As soon as you get into the latter half of the first round, all of a sudden you see a lot of people taking reaches in that space, and you can kind of see that in the data. Like half of these guys are busting, which is pretty shocking because they're mostly first round quarterbacks, or at least very early second round. A lot of these teams are trading up to go and get them, and yet they're not really using them very effectively.
Yeah, so I mean, the data says that half of them are going to bust. Good, I would say good backup is, if you're taking them in fantasy, it's a bust, right? So half of them bust, which was kind of like the case with the top quarterbacks, but there's a lack of superstars and studs. Like the other, I want to go back 1 second just to see, and hold on, I'm going backwards for some reason. Okay. Here we go. So yeah, superstars and studs you had at 41%, and here you only have at 19%. So yeah, you're not going to get the insane upside usually. Now, obviously, there's Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers there, so it happens occasionally, but it's very much like less often. And looking at the two guys that are in question here, with Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck, like none of them really strike me as guys that are like you just need to have on your roster. Like I don't anticipate owning any of these guys on my teams this year in regular fantasy. I think in best ball I drafted Jackson Dart once. I've never drafted Tyler Shuck. I only drafted Jackson Dart because I had two quarterbacks and like all the other guys are gone. Like I just needed a third, and he was like my 19th round pick. That's the only time I took him. So yeah, I'm not really excited about them. I assume you're not either, just based on this data.
No, absolutely not. And I don't have the 6 to 16 data there, but first half of the first round quarterbacks, we're talking about like 3 times as much chance of being a superstar and like a significantly lower chance of busting. It really does make a massive difference. So we can't be comparing a Jackson Dart or a Tyler Shuck to guys like Bo Nix and Michael Penix and stuff who went in that first half of the first round. I know that they're the next quarterbacks taken, but they're in a really different situation. And even if you look at all these players, how many of these guys were starters in their first year? Like, especially not out the gate. Even the superstars like your Aaron Rodgers and guys like Jordan Love who've been good, they still weren't starting in their first year out. So it's hard to see someone like a Dart or a Shuck having a good season in their first year. It usually takes these guys a year or two to even get an opportunity. And while Shucks is pretty lucky in that Derek Carr obviously is retired, and that means he might get an opportunity, the chance of him really booming here is very, very, very low. And I think we can tell that from the offense and the situation.
Yeah, I think so too. I would say, Jackson played the second half of his rookie year, and I mean, he was great right away. But yeah, you're right; like he didn't play right away, and so I don't expect either of these guys. Well, maybe Tyler Shuck will start. That's possible. Spencer Rattler could be the starter. I'm not really sure how that's going to unfold. But with Dart, I would assume it's going to be Russell Wilson. I mean, they signed 2 veterans. Like even if Wilson struggles, they Winston. So I don't see them rushing him onto the field. Like maybe he plays second half of the year, and that's why I drafted him as like the last resort, because I thought that like late in the year when there might be an injury, maybe he's playing by then. But again, I'm not really too enthusiastic about these guys. And then we go to round 3. So we have 2 guys, Jalen Milroe and Dylan Gabriel. I don't know how he fell into round 3, but we'll talk about him. So the data here says 77.8% bust, which can't be a surprise. There was one superstar when speaking of Russell Wilson, he's there. And then you had Matt Schaub was a stud for a few years. And then Nick Foles, fantasy starter. If Kenny were on here, he'd be so angry. He's like, he's the best quarterback of all time. Actually, second best now with Jalen Hurts because he won the Super Bowl. Kenny being a big Eagles fan, obviously. So yeah, you want to touch on this with these round 3 quarterbacks?
I mean, I think it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Don't get excited about Jalen Milroe. The chance of him having any success at any point in his career is very, very, very low. If you think about, like, would you have been happy to have Nick Foles in the early years of his career? Absolutely not. Would you have been happy to have a Davis Mills or a Jacoby Brissett ever? No. So the odds of you hitting here, you're basically hoping for a fluke Russell Wilson situation, and that's not Jalen Milroe. He's not going to come out and be a star straight away. He's not going to come out and be a starter straight away. So I can't imagine a situation where I'd feel good about using him. I'm not even convinced that he's the number 2 in his team. In fact, I think he's probably not. So it's just an ugly situation for both of these guys, and it's really tempting to get excited by them, but you should not be giving up anything that even looks slightly like a valuable fantasy asset for any of these players.
Yeah, I agree. I can see Milroe playing as like a wildcat sort of, gadget guy here and there, like 3, 4, 5 snaps per game, but that's not any fantasy relevance at all. So yeah, I have no interest in these guys. I don't even know if Dylan Gabriel makes a team. I don't understand how he was a 3rd round pick, but I don't know. Maybe I guess because the Browns drafted him so early, they probably just stick with him. But just based on what I saw out of him in Oregon, I wouldn't expect it, but we'll see. We do have some interesting guys here on day 3. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders was what everyone was talking about. He's the new speed racer. He's going like 100 miles an hour on the road on multiple occasions, which, I was guilty of early, like back in the day, like when I was like 19, 20, I got my first car. But like this, I was not the quarterback or potential face of the franchise. So I think I would have been I would have acted differently. Actually, if I had that much money, I'd just have a driver. Anyway, we have no superstars on day 3 quarterbacks. We do have some studs in Prescott, Kirk Cousins, and then Purdy is starter. Maybe he'll turn into a stud, but we'll see. And then 92% bust rate. So it's tough to expect anything out of these guys. Do any of these quarterbacks intrigue you at all?
Really, no. Like, as much as there's a little bit of talent with guys like McCord, realistically, the odds of any of these guys hitting is exceptionally low. They essentially need a whole heap of luck. They need an injury or 2 ahead of them to get an opportunity. None of them really got drafted into like a Dak Prescott situation. I feel like Shedeur Sanders is the one that people are obviously going to be excited about. And I understand that because there does seem to be a clearer path to a starting role than you get with most day 3 quarterbacks. But ultimately, even though we all think that he's better than a day 3 quarterback, the teams don't. And there's a reason that they've let him drop this far. And I feel like it's unlikely that he's going to jump straight into an early opportunity. Having said that, I don't think he falls into a normal category of most day 3 quarterbacks. I don't think we can compare him to the vast majority of these players. We haven't seen many players that had that sort of fall, and it's kind of hard to know what to make of him. Are there any guys that you can even think of in the past where you're like, this is a similar situation where he was clearly a better player who dropped due to off-the-field issues, and all of a sudden now we don't really know how to value him?
The only, and it's funny that Mel Kiper touted this guy as well. The only guy I can think of who is kind of like Shedeur Sanders, although he fell from the 1st round to the 2nd and not the 5th, was Jimmy Clausen. Mel Kiper had him number 4 on his big board, so he loved him. He kind of fooled me with his analysis. I thought Jimmy Clausen was going to be good because he was coached by Charlie Weiss, and I thought that he'd be pro ready and there's a pro style offense. He had some good tools, but man, he was a giant bust. And I remember Carolina taking him in the 2nd round. And I was thinking like, wow, they got potential franchise quarterback, and I think that's what some people are thinking with Shedeur Sanders. And Shedeur Sanders is getting drafted. He's going like 18th, 19th round in best ball, and every time that happens, I'm like, why? Like, what are you doing? He's not going to play. I don't see him really playing that much this year. Maybe at the end, maybe later in his career, he gets like brief boom list potentially, but I don't know. I mean, does he ever get up to solid producer? I'm not really sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I just can't see a situation where he gets an opportunity in the near future, and then if the season goes south, he probably gets on the field. But this is not exactly an easy situation to come in and be a star. I mean, the Browns look awful. They don't really have the weapons there to use. It's not the sort of situation you want to be in as a young quarterback. So I don't think he's got the talent to make up for the lack of weapons around him.
You know what's going to hurt him? There are 2 things. Well, first of all, there's also Dylan Gabriel, because like if he were the only rookie there, you'd be like, okay, he has a chance to play late in the year. But there's also Gabriel, and he was drafted earlier, so they might give him a chance. The second thing is like I could see them upsetting Cincinnati in week one. Like that's going to be one of my top picks. I think Cincinnati's just awful week one. Joe Burrow, like Cleveland's a house of horrors for Joe Burrow. Their defense sucks. Like I think the Browns are going to upset Cincinnati, and so like Cleveland's going to have like a better record than people think, at least at the beginning. And so that's going to keep Flacco on the field instead of these young quarterbacks. So I don't really necessarily see Sanders even playing this year, especially with the 2 speeding tickets or whatever he accrued recently. So I don't know. It's a tough situation for him. I wouldn't draft him. I don't see why anyone would. Okay, so you have your rookie rankings here, as you can see on the screen. Do you want to run through them?
Yeah, I should mention, by the way, that now that Aaron Rodgers has officially gone to Pittsburgh, that drops Will Howard down for me. I think the odds of him being the starter were always low, but at least better than someone like a Dylan Gabriel. But realistically, for me, the only guy that interests me is Cam Ward. The reason I've got Tyler Shuck above Jackson Dart is I think he's got more chance of being a starter straight out the gate, and therefore his odds of being a starter ever are significantly higher than Jackson Dart. A whole heap of those guys who got drafted in that range never really got a proper opportunity. And when it's taking a year or two for your fantasy dynasty stash to be getting on the field, all of a sudden you're wasting that bench space. You're better off finding out straight away what you've got in your guide. At least with someone like a Tyler Shuck, we have that immediate opportunity to find out whether he's going to have any value for dynasty. So that's why I've got him ranked higher than Dart. Anyone below Dart, in the vast majority of dynasty leagues, I'm not touching these guys. It's really the top 3 and then nothing. And I think that Cam Ward's really the only guy that I've drafted anywhere at all because everyone else is just too low and too low. The odds are too low of them succeeding.
Yeah, it's not a great quarterback class at all. I'm looking forward to the Shuck Spencer, the Silver Snake Rattler competition. And that kind of sounds like, why are you looking forward to 2 potentially crappy quarterbacks? Well, we haven't had football in a while, so I'll take anything at this point. All right, so that's it for quarterbacks. Let's go to the running backs. So we begin with the top 20 picks. We had Ashton Genty at 106, obviously to the Raiders. And it looks like there's a huge superstar hit rate here with 60%, and then studs at 50%. Fantasy stars is 20%. So in case you can't do the math, there is 95% at least fantasy starters. So that's looking good for Ashton Genty, despite Pete Carroll coming out and saying that he thinks Ashton Genty and Raheem Mostert are thunder and lightning. Has anything changed for you with Genty at all since we last spoke, particularly with what Pete Carroll said?
For me, this shows us a lot. Realistically, every player drafted in the top 20 as a running back since 2012 has at least one top 5 season. In fact, no running back except Jonathan Taylor has finished number 1 overall and not been a top 20 pick in the last 15 or so years. You need to be an early drafted running back if you're going to be a superstar in fantasy football the vast majority of the time. So Genty has that opportunity. That makes his value massively higher than everyone else. And his floor is very, very, very high as well. I think everyone drafted in this range since 2008 has had at least a top 10 fantasy finish, and most of them have been around for at least 6, 7, 8 years. So we're talking about a guy who's going to produce for a long time for your fantasy team. Really, the only thing that can stop him is either really bad coaching. I don't think we're going to get that, or an injury. And you can't predict an injury. And even if he gets an injury, there's a good chance he'll be able to at least make something happen regardless. So I feel like Genty is just so far and above everyone else in this rookie class. I would move heaven and earth to go and get him. And the funny thing is, I don't even particularly love the talent. I know he's a very good receiver, and that's good for fantasy football, but it's not like he's, for me, in the same universe as a Bijan Robinson, for example. But I feel like just the situation, how these players get used, mean that you absolutely must take him for fantasy football.
I have a feeling that in like the first 3, 4, 5 weeks of the season, I think people are going to be really fed up with Pete Carroll because he has a history of not playing his first round picks. I'm not saying that Genty's not going to be played. Like, he's going to be the starter there. But I can see like Mostert getting like 1 too many carries, and people are like, why is Genty, getting 18, 19 carries and Mostert's getting 11? Like, why is this not further apart? I could see that like the first month or so. Because remember the Seahawks drafted Rashad Penny in the first round, and then they barely played him until like year 2 or year 3. They've done that a couple of times with Pete Carroll, and like him calling Mostert like that duo Thunder and Lightning. Like Mostert's super old. Like what are you doing here? I don't know. I think by the end of the year, it's Genty. It's gonna be Genty's backfield. But I think like the first few weeks, like people are gonna be frustrated, and then they're gonna be complaining, and then eventually the Raiders will figure things out. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I mean, we've seen that happen with someone like a Jahmyr Gibbs, where he's ultimately in a committee, but because he's so good and because the run offense is so good, and I think it will be pretty good in Vegas. We've seen guys like Zamir White have fantasy success. So Genty's definitely going to be able to have success. If you look at the list of names who's been good for fantasy football in Vegas, it's really ugly. They've gone nowhere else and done anything. So Genty in that offense should be good for fantasy. It's just how many opportunities is he going to get? And I think, like you said, it's going to be a bit rough early on, but after 4 or 5 weeks, I think he's going to really take over.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, next slide. We have picks 21 through 40. So it's a stark difference here. I'm going to transition back for 1 second where you had 60, 15, and 20 as far as superstars, studs, and fantasy starters. So 16, 15, and 20. We now go to 29, 7, and 25 for the same 3 categories. And as you can see, brief values, 18% bust is 7.4%. Good backups, which you would not want out of a 21 to 40 pick, 11%. So hit rate's a lot lower here, and you can definitely remember a lot of names. Particularly with like you had the Patriots like Sony Michel. That was even before the guys in the list. I think no, he's there. He's right there with the good backups. Yeah, a lot of guys who drafted in the 20s. To just recall. Just disappointing. And I think they give a bad name to those upper half of the first round running backs, like Genty, because every time like a first round running back's brought up, I always like there's always a few people who are always like, oh, you can't take first round running backs. Like, what about Sony Michel or Rashad Penny or David Wilson? And I'm like, well, those guys went later in the first round, so it's a huge difference here. But you do have your superstars, so these guys aren't destined to bust, but hit rates are a lot worse here. So do you want to talk about the 3 running backs here and how you think they would maybe fit into this chart?
Yeah, I think this is the kind of range where teams don't feel the need to use their running back immediately. They're willing to be a little bit more patient. And we've seen that happen with a lot of these guys where they end up in some sort of committee or they don't have as long a run rate to succeed. The team's more willing to get other players involved. And I can imagine that happening with all these running backs. I don't like Hampton's situation. I don't like the committee that he's going into. I think that's going to be really awkward. And I don't think that's going to be good initially for fantasy football. I can certainly see him taking over in the long term, but I think it is really going to hurt in his rookie year. And that's a pretty standard situation for a rookie drafted in this range to go into. I think the issue with Judkins for me is that I feel like this is still very much going to be a committee, but a different type where Judkins is doing a lot of the early down work. And then you see other guys come in and do the receiving work. Plus, Jerome Ford's still going to get touches. They love giving him 6 or 7 touches every game. And it'll be like a Dylan Sampson or someone else coming in to do the receiving work. And that's going to be ugly for a totally different reason, especially because Cleveland's going to be probably going to be trailing a lot of the time. And for that reason, Judkins is going to get less touches as the game goes on when they're behind. As for Henderson, I mean, at least he's going to be out there on pretty much every down based on talent. But do you really want the New England running back? That hasn't really been a stud for fantasy for a long time. So I can't imagine this is a situation where he's got as much upside as someone like a Breece Hall or a Najee Harris. So there's kind of dings against all 3 players, and they're all very different, but I'm avoiding all of them at their current cost, not because I don't believe in them, but just because people are going out of their way to try to draft these guys, and I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, at current cost, that's huge. It's like they're just going too early. Like Hampton's going round 4, Judkins going round 6, Henderson, I think even earlier than Judkins, like round 5, late round 5. Like if these guys were taken 2 rounds later, if like Hampton is round 6, like I can get into that. Like Judkins round 8, Henderson round 7, like that would make more sense to me. But they're just being drafted too early because of rookie hype. People are just dying to find the next Bucky Irving and stuff like that, even though these guys were drafted earlier, but still. Like I think like one of these guys will be a superstar, and that's what the data says. Like about a third will be a superstar, and I think that that's definitely going to be true here. We obviously don't know who that is, and as you said, their path to success as rookies is kind of muddled right now, and so I'd rather just take a proven veteran and just have more safety, and also probably have the same sort of upside for this year.
Yeah, and it is worth noting that a player in this range hasn't truly busted since like 2012, so they're going to get opportunities. Teams don't draft running backs this high that much anymore, so they'll definitely get opportunities, but the teams aren't going to go out of their way to force them onto the field. And I think that's the important thing. They will get chances, but how long are you willing to wait? And in a non-dynasty situation, I'm not willing to wait that long.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, it's a good point. Bust rate is pretty low. So let's see if that continues to be the case for this next segment here. We have picks 41 through 64, and yeah, bust rate is much higher, up to 37.2%, which is higher than superstars and studs combined, and also fantasy starters combined. So, yeah, that's it's truly like 50-50 here, as far as being great or being terrible. I mean, the only running back who fits this range is RJ Harvey. So how do you see him fitting in here?
I feel like he's not going into a situation that's like any of the superstars there, and I don't think he has the talent of any of those superstars. I think he is a small back who's only going to be able to be used in very specific ways. I don't think he's such a good blocker that they're going to be able to use him on every down. I think J.K. Dobbins being there absolutely kills his value. I think he's far more likely to bust or at the very best be a middling value. And that's not someone I want for fantasy. I did feel a little bit higher on him a couple of weeks ago when it did seem like there was just him and no one else of interest. Like Audric Estime was the other guy, and like Jaleel McLaughlin. Now that we've got some real talent there with him, I feel like this is very much going to be a committee situation.
Yeah, I think so too. He was going mid-round 5 earlier, and I thought that was early. And I thought like once the Broncos signed Dobbins, I thought, okay, maybe he drops like round 7, and maybe you could make a case for value there. But he's still going like late round 5, early round 6. Like he just hasn't dropped all that much. And I'm like, I feel like people are just being stubborn. Like they liked RJ Harvey only because of the situation, and now the situation stinks, and they still like RJ Harvey. It's like why? Like because he can make people miss, like in space. Like his horrible vision. You know, he's a former quarterback. He's still learning the position. Like I don't know. I'm just not a fan either. I think there's some interesting running backs here round 3, and this was just be clear 41 through 64. So that was the end of the second round. This is round 3. So I want to compare the busts here real quick. So we have 37% to 32%, which is interesting. What's the sample size? Around 40. Okay. However, superstars is less. It goes from 20% to 10%. Studs and fantasy starters are 7 and 7. Great drink, by the way, and then 10 and 20. So it looks like the top end isn't as great, but there's slightly less bust potential, and like there's a higher floor. It seems like, although, well, obviously, I mean, 40 player sample size is, well, while it's like it's pretty good. It's like you could see that changing if as the years progress. But I don't know why do you think that is like such a difference there?
I think it's the type of player you get in this range. I think in the second round, teams are trying to swing on an every down player. And the every down players who've gotten through the first round into the late second round just are never going to be as good. All of a sudden, you're looking for that upside as a team drafting. You're probably in the back half of the draft, so you've probably got a pretty solid team. You're just looking for that every down back. And a lot of the time, you're going to swing and miss because the best every down backs aren't there. These guys have fallen to the third round because they're probably one-trick ponies. Maybe they're a receiving back out of the backfield. Maybe they're way too small but very explosive. Maybe they're just an early down banger. And there's plenty of guys here who really are just an early down back. And I can see that happening with a Caleb Johnson, where he goes in and he's the big back and Jalen Warren's the smaller back. And that gives you plenty of solid fantasy seasons in the realm of like a Brian Robinson or someone like that, who is that big back, who's going to play on those early downs, and he's going to be fine for fantasy football. He's not going to win you your league, but if you're in a situation where you need a little bit of depth, you need someone for your bye week, then the opportunity's there, and he might develop into something more later on. We've seen that happen with some of these guys, but it's far less likely to occur than it is with an early round player because teams drafted them understanding what they're going to get. They're going to get a bit of a one-trick pony, and you have to accept that for fantasy.
How much do you like Caleb Johnson? Like, he's going like late round 6, early round 7. Would you draft him there?
It's too early for me. The type of plays you can get in that range have more upside, I think. I do recognize that Johnson probably has a pretty good floor, but I think for this year at least, the upside just isn't there for me.
Okay. I do like him better at his range more than the other quarterbacks that we discussed after Chelsea. I just think that, I initially thought that, like, Jalen Warren would kind of stand in his way, and maybe that'll be the case. But I thought, like, the more I thought about it, it's like they never played Warren over Najee Harris, who just, while he was dependable, he was never that great. And so if they never give Warren a chance, like why would they start Warren over Caleb Johnson? I don't know. Maybe it's just the veteran thing with Mike Tomlin, but I really like Caleb Johnson as a prospect. I thought he should have gone round 2. I think he's a much better player than RJ Harvey. And Pittsburgh run blocks very well. They don't pass protect very well, but they run block very well. So I think if he becomes a starter, I think he could be like a stud like right away. I obviously don't know if that's going to happen. That's kind of why he's going like round 7. But I have drafted him where it's like I've never drafted RJ Harvey unless I did once when I did a show with someone. You know, it was a guest and told me to draft RJ Harvey. That was the only time I ever drafted RJ Harvey. I've not touched him. I have drafted Caleb Johnson. I kind of want to see what the ownership is there. I've drafted him in 4% of leagues, so not a lot, but it's more than 0 last time I checked with Harvey.
Yeah, look, I think the cost makes a lot more sense there. I think people are seeing the upside with Harvey. My concern with Johnson, it's not only just Jalen Warren, but it's Kenny Gainwell as well. I can imagine a situation where they see Kenny Gainwell as their third down back, and they're going to use him in every third down and 2-minute drill situation. That just feels like a very Pittsburghy thing to do. So for that reason, I am concerned about Johnson's ceiling. I feel like it's unlikely he's going to be an every down back and turn into one of these stud guys. But I can certainly see a really good like top 20 season out of him even this year and certainly into the future.
Yeah, I'm looking at the fantasy starters there. Like Brian Robinson seems like a good comp there.
Yeah.
I think. Neither will play third downs. All right, let's round 4. We have a bunch of guys here, including Cam Scatabo is going round 7 in some best ball drafts. That's shaking your head. That's insane. The bust rate is very high, much higher than the other rounds, 58.5%, which kind of tracks. Superstar rate is much lower, 3.8%. The only ones who have been superstars were Devontae Freeman and Lamar Miller. Some 5% studs, 9.4% fantasy starters. So we're looking at about 20% superstars through fantasy starters, and then you have some good backups as well. So yeah, more than half of these guys bust. Are you looking to draft any of them?
Not really. I know a lot of people are excited about the likes of Tootin and Scatterbu, and I just don't see it. I think that they're drafted in the 4th round for a reason. I didn't mind the talent, but teams waited this long and they expect a certain thing from a 4th round running back, and that's developed over time into a good running back. But they started very much a backup or a number 3, and I think that's going to happen with both of these guys. I know their depth charts look weaker, and therefore it feels like there's more of an opportunity, but if the Giants or the Jaguars wanted to go and get a running back, they easily could have done it several rounds earlier. And they're showing us what they expect out of these players. They're showing us they don't expect them to be day one starters unless they really show up in OTAs and everything else. The guy I was really interested in is Woody Marks because I had him in college fantasy and I really liked him. He was a very good receiving back. But Nick Chubb going there really scares me off. The upside is no longer there. He's not going to turn into a possible starter. All of a sudden, at best, he's going to be a receiving back. And in PPR, that can be useful in a really deep league, but I feel like you're going to have to wait a couple of years before you can get him. But he is the only guy in this range that I've really been going out of my way to get. Other than him, I'm not really excited by anybody.
Yeah, I'm not really either. I've drafted like Jadon Blue a couple of times, Tootin a couple of times. I think only once, actually, Tootin. I've never drafted Scotabo because he's going so early. Round 7 is insane. Like if he was going like round 13 or 14, I could see myself doing it. But and also like I listen to like random fantasy shows. Like it comes up on YouTube. I'm walking my dog. I just play it. I can't like if I had a nickel for every time I heard someone say, "Oh, the Giants are going to have a running back by committee with Scotabo and Tracy." Like I'd have a lot of nickels because these guys like they say it all the time. And I'm like, first of all, Scott was the RB3 there right now. Maybe he's going to get touches at the goal line, but Singletary is the RB2 right now. And like maybe he passes Singletary, but I can't see him passing Tracy. Tracy is so good last year. You were all over him. Like you called Tyron Tracy. That was a great call on your part. I mean, I've drafted Tyron Tracy quite a bit here just because he's going like 9th, 10th round. I just think there's good value. Tracy, I've drafted 21% of best ball drafts. So So I don't. Do you still like? I think we talked about it. Do you still like Tracy? I don't think you like him as much, right? If I remember, but you still like him a
No,
little bit.
I feel like he's going into a committee situation. I feel like
Okay.
this is very much going to be committee, but I agree. I think Devin Singletary is still going to be involved. I think Scatterboo just gives them something they didn't have before, which is a goal line weapon. Singletary is one of the smallest players in the league. Outside Tyreek Cohen, when I looked a couple of years ago, he was the smallest player in the league size-wise. So for that reason, they needed someone bigger, and Tracy's not great around the goal line either. So it makes sense they went and got Scatterboo, but they're using him in a very specific way if they use him at all, and that's around the goal line. He really doesn't offer that much else for me. I also have to say with Tyrone Tracy, I can't take full credit because my colleague at Fantasy First Down Kiwi, he predicted that in the last 3 years, he's picked Puka Nakua, Isaiah Pacheco, and Tyrone Tracy as his 3 breakout guys. So I have to give credit to him here because he's got a ridiculous success rate. I will ignore the fact that the season before that, his pick was Cole Turner. We're just not going to mention that. And we're just going to go with those last 3 guys. But this year, he's all in on Brashard Smith. So when we come to
Okay.
that, I can give a shout about Brashard Smith.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, look, even if you want to include Cole Turner's 75% hit rate on just late round flyers, like that, I mean, that's really impressive. So you can even include Cole Turner. It's a great hit rate. Yeah. Okay. Brashard Smith. I'm looking forward to that. Armac though commenting how much GameStop we buying, boys. Yeah, I bought quite a bit when it dropped from 28 to 23. It did that because of the deal they did where they raised like $2 more billion. GameStop, by the way, currently has $9.1 billion in cash, $500 million in Bitcoin, and no debt that they have to pay off until 2032. It's not really debt because that just gets converted to shares. So it's a great company, but and their CEO takes $0 in income. So it's a great company. Love it. I think it's going places. I actually asked Grok today how much GameStop should be worth for a share, and they said $50 at least. So it's 23 right now. Like, so I actually, I managed both my kids' accounts. I gave them advances on their birthday money so I could buy more GameStop. That's how much of a great deal it is. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's insane value right now. Yeah, I forgot about Cold Torrent. That's a name I forgot about as well. All right. All right. So round 5. Okay, so we have Jaden Blue here, Giddens and James. How similar is this to round 4? So superstar rate is slightly higher, although it's kind of with variance there. But bust rate is much higher, 10%. So that kind of makes sense. Superstar rate about the same. What about studs and fantasy starters? Yeah, so much less. So at the top, instead of what was it, 20%? It is now looks like about 11.4%. So or 11.2%. So yeah, we want to talk about this.
It's a little bit interesting because the 5th round, for whatever reason, is where we've seen a lot of guys recently. Like Chase Brown's come through there recently. Kyron Williams is relatively recent. Aaron Jones is at least still around. So there's a lot of familiar names there. But realistically, the odds of someone hitting here is very low. Having said that, Jaden Blue at least is in a situation where he might hit. We know that the Cowboys are willing to use day 3 running backs as their starters, or at least to give them opportunities. We saw it with Tony Pollard. He's in a very weak depth chart where I just don't buy Javonte Williams at all. I definitely don't buy Miles Sanders. So there's going to be opportunities there. Admittedly, the value of a Dallas Cowboys running back is not what it used to be, but I feel like there is a situation where Blue could emerge as the clear starter within the next year or so. But the odds of that happening is pretty low. And I think we've seen that with a lot of guys in this range. I feel like if that's going to happen, he'd have to take that sort of Chase Brown direction where he kind of came in as the backup, moved into a committee, and just clearly became the better back. In his case, obviously, it was a bit lucky that Zach Moss got injured. But I feel like in this situation, Blue has the capacity to outplay Williams. I just don't think it's anywhere near a guarantee he does it.
Yeah, he definitely has a lot of potential to do that. Yeah, 0 challengers, as Armac says. Javonte Williams is awful. As awful as Javonte Williams is, Miles Sanders is even worse. So, there's really no competition. Like, there's like a sliver of chance that Javonte Williams becomes what he was as a rookie before he tore his ACL, but I just don't see that happening. Just unfortunate that his career just went south after that injury. He just never recovered from it. But yeah, I mean, Jaden Blue has some potential. I believe I've drafted him a little bit. I drafted him in 3% of leagues, so that's something at least. I haven't drafted the other guys.
We drafted him last time I was here as well because I put my hand up for that one.
Nice. Yeah, it's not bad. He's going like round 11 or 12. I wish he was like 12, 13. It'd be a lot higher if that were the case. Like 11, it seems like a little too early. 12, I think is okay. Broncos fan, I had such high hopes before he records it. Yeah, it's such a shame. Like so many running backs have had their careers ended with injuries like that. Like think about Todd Gurley. Like this guy was looking like a top 5 rusher of all time eventually with how his career is projecting, and he went to the Super Bowl. He carried the team to the Super Bowl, and 2 years later he's out of the league. It's crazy how these injuries like make these running backs just disappear. All right, so round 6 and 7. So we have our guy Rashad Smith here. There are no superstars, 0%. Bust rate is very high, 83%. Not a surprise there. We've had 2 studs, Latavius Murray and Alfred Morris, and then 3.3% fantasy starters. I say Pacheco, Andre Ellington, Rex Burkhardt. Perhaps Pacheco could emerge into a stud category at some point, but not if your guy is right. What did you say his name was? Kiwi?
Kiwi, yeah. He's from New Zealand. I'm just calling him Kiwi.
Okay. All right. So he likes Rashad Smith. Did he say why? And you want to touch on everyone else here?
He believes this depth chart's pretty weak. He's not convinced that Pacheco is going to come back 100% from the injury. And we've seen that with guys that we just talked about, people coming back from injury and struggling. And he thinks that Pacheco's injury issues might be extended onwards. He thinks Smith is very elusive, good pass catcher out of the backfield. Hunt's obviously getting older. Elijah Mitchell is a bit of a non-entity. So at least there's opportunities there. And we know that the Chiefs are very willing to give late day 3 guys opportunities. So I can see where he's coming from. I certainly don't think he sees this as this guy is going to be a stud, but I think it's very much there's an opportunity here, is potential that he turns into something, certainly more so than most of the other guys in this range. And you can get him practically free in most drafts.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think I've drafted him unless I did it with someone else. But I mean, those are really good points. No, I haven't drafted him. Those are good points. I have drafted Pacheco, I think, more than I probably should have, just because there is uncertainty with the injury. I just felt like, it's not like he tore his ACL or something. I mean, he broke his leg, but I mean, we've seen guys come back from broken legs, but there's a chance that he doesn't. And I think Rashard Smith is a pretty good prospect, so he could emerge as a stud player or fantasy starter for sure. I mean, we've seen it a bunch of times with Chiefs running backs in day 3. So yeah, I definitely could see myself doing that. Like I said, I need to draft them a little bit more.
You got to be careful with broken legs. They don't all heal the same. I broke my leg when I was 16. I used to be an 11-second 100-meter runner. I never got back under 13 seconds again. Just sapped all of my speed and explosiveness. It's just it really can make a difference depending where on your leg it happens. It can really limit your ability to to take off and use those muscles that are around the bone.
That sucks. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, I kind of the same boat for me. I used to be a swimmer, and I tore like something here, which actually is like still hurts sometimes. And I never got back to being as fast as I was in the 100 breaststroke. So yeah, we definitely can understand that. It's really frustrating that you just never get back. But whatever. I mean, it worked out because like I spent less time swimming and more time working on the website. So it definitely, I guess maybe silver lining there. All right, let's look at your rookie running back rankings. You have Genty, number 1, no doubt about that. But then, you can make your arguments, and I see you have Caleb Johnson over Harvey, which makes a lot of sense. Do you want to go through this?
Yeah, absolutely. The top guys, I mean, Genty is just far and away above everyone else. I still like Hampton's talent better, and I do think long-term he's the better option. This year, I'm not as high on him as some of the other guys, but long-term, I do think that Hampton has a really good opportunity to become a very good player, especially in that Chargers offense where they do want to run the ball a lot. Judkins, I personally really like the talent of. I just don't like the situation, but I feel like he could develop into something, and I feel like that's more likely long-term than a Henderson. But again, those 3 are all very close for me. Johnson, I've got ahead of Harvey because I feel like he's just got more talent, and the situation is actually pretty good compared to Harvey's now that Dobbins has gone there. Everyone below there, I'm not too excited about. Scatterboo's fine. Jaden Blue's fine. But again, the odds of them actually hitting are very, very low. And we've seen that with a lot of players in that range. Below that, we can drop down if you want.
Okay.
Below that, Jacquez Hunter, I feel like at least has an opportunity to go past Blake Corum. I think you talked about that last time I was on as well, and I agree. I think the possibility's there. And then you got guys like Dylan Sampson and Brashard Smith who could become that sort of receiving back and slowly develop into an actual starter. I can see that path happening. And DJ Giddens is someone that's growing on me. I think I'll probably move him up next time with my next set of rankings because I can see him getting past Khalil Herbert. I thought they might bring someone else in, and they just haven't. So I do think that Giddens could potentially be the backup there.
Interesting. Yeah, with Hunter, I told you last time the Sean McVay quote where he said that was the guy he wanted in day 3. So yeah, maybe he'll give the ball to Hunter. And like Kyron Williams doesn't really have a great durability history, so one of the Rams backups could do well, although that could be a committee. And then yeah, Brashard Smith's interesting, like you talked about. Simon says I like Devin Neal. I have no good explanation as to why. Any thoughts on Devin Neal there? You have him number 17.
I have no strong feelings about him, and I can't tell you why either. I feel like he's in a situation where there's at least an opportunity. We like opportunities, but I don't think the talent aligns with the opportunity. I think they like Kendre Miller there. Whether that's justified or not, I think they like him enough that he's the clear backup, and Alvin Kamara is still clearly the number one. I think by the time an opportunity opens up, they'll have drafted somebody else, and Devin Neal will never end up getting an opportunity.
Yeah, makes sense. And also, he violates something along with Dylan Sampson and Quinshon Judkins. A rule that I have is just don't draft players on bad offenses. Cleveland and New Orleans probably going to have they're 2 of the 3 or 5 worst offenses in the NFL. So just try to stay away with those guys unless they like really plummet in your draft and you get great value. That's just something I would recommend. All right, let's go to receivers now. And so we have top 10 picks. We have 2 guys in the top 10, Travis Hunter and then Tedero and McMillan. Superstars hit at 25%. It starts at 29%, so above 50%. And then you add in fantasy starters at 4.2%. Bust rate, though, pretty high at 25%. I want to compare this real quick to your quarterbacks where you had bust rate at 10% and your running backs where you had a bust rate at 0%. Receivers bust at a much higher rate here. Any thoughts to why? And would you think that maybe McMillan falls into that category or maybe Hunter?
I mean, firstly, I think it's a pretty low sample size. And if we look at the players who busted, it was that kind of period of time where they seem to think that if someone's an athlete, then all of a sudden you can turn them into a fantastic wide receiver. Guys like Tavon Austin and John Ross. I don't think that teams draft like that anymore. The success rate recently is a lot better. I think the last player to really bust was kind of 2017, Corey Davis, who was still okay. It's just that he didn't have that longevity, had a lot of issues with injuries. Hard to know what he could have turned into, but everyone that's been drafted in this range recently has been very good. I think the reason I'm wary is neither of these guys, Travis Hunter or Ted McMillan, they're not really true top 10 picks. I don't know that Travis Hunter would have been drafted into the top 10 if he was just a wide receiver. I guess we'll never know. But I wonder if he didn't play cornerback where he actually could have fallen. I'd be interested in what you think of that as well. And I think in most years' drafts, Tedero McMillan would never be a top 10 pick. In fact, he probably shouldn't have been this year either. It was very weird, as we talked about in our draft discussions, that he even went in the top 10. So I feel like both of these guys don't really truly belong in this range. And for that reason, I think they're more likely to bust or at least not be really successful fantasy players compared to most guys drafted in this range.
Yeah, as far the Hunter question is interesting, and it's definitely nuanced because in this year's draft, I think he would be like if he's just a receiver, I think he would have gone where McMillan went instead. However, if you're talking about like last year's draft, I don't think he goes above Odunze if he's just a receiver. So that then he would not be a top 10 pick. So it just depends on where like what class you're talking about, how strong it is. So I would say like definitely borderline top 10 pick if he's just a receiver. But yeah, I mean, like theoretically the Jaguars are getting 2 players in one. It's kind of funny, like the Our Lads depth charts. I don't know if you look at them, but the Our Lads depth chart have Hunter at receiver and also cornerbacks. Kind of like strange. Never seen that before. But yeah, McMillan. I think I told you my theory where this is just David Tepper coming in and being like, I need my guy, Bryce Young, to not embarrass me. We need all the help we can get. Let's get McMillan. And he like overrode everyone. So yeah, I don't think he necessarily falls into the top 10 range. And I could see him busting. Like he's someone who doesn't like football. He's even said that. He just doesn't like football. So that really bothers me. So plus like you can argue bad player on or a player on bad offense potentially, but Carolina does at least have a good offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. And I also don't love players going in the first round who have slight separation issues. That seems to be the main thing that causes a player to bust, is just not being able to get away from defenders, and all of a sudden they just never get the ball. You hate that for fantasy. And combine that with a bad offense, it does look really bad for McMillan. I will say the only player I've ever seen on our lads playing in multiple positions is when you get those guys who are both a fullback and a linebacker randomly. It seems to happen like every 5 years.
That's right.
So this is a very, very different situation.
Yeah. I mean, especially as a starter, it's very weird. All right, picks 11 through 24, so not the final quarter of the first round here. We have Emeka Egbuka and Matthew Golden. So superstar rate, let's just compare the two. So we go from 25% to 15%. Studs go from 29 to 18%, and fantasy starters goes up from 4 to 21%. Bust rate is actually lower from 25, I believe, 25 to 21%. So what do you make of that, and where do you think that Egbuka and Golden fit in?
Yeah, you get a whole lot more guys that are going to end up as like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3s, guys like your Zay Flowers and your Jordan Addisons, who realistically don't have much of an opportunity to be a top 12 wide receiver for fantasy. Like in the case of Flowers, he's the number one in his team, but they just don't use the ball in a way where he's got that opportunity. And Jordan Addison, he's stuck behind Justin Jefferson. And I can see that happening with each of these players. I think Egbuka goes into a situation where the odds of him being the number one in Tampa, that's not going to happen for years. He's going to have Mike Evans and maybe Chris Godwin ahead of him for at least a while. And even when that happens, we don't know that he's definitely going to become the number one. As for Matthew Golden, I think he probably is the number one for the Packers, but how much value does being the number one for the Packers even have? It hasn't had value for quite some time. I feel like this is very much like a Zay Flowers situation, where being the number one in your team does not make you a wide receiver 1 for fantasy, and you're far more likely to finish as like a top 30, maybe top 20 wide receiver most years. And that's really the upside.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm coming around on Egbuka a lot. I've been drafting him more lately, and I think it's the report that Chris Godwin may not be ready week 1 gives me like Christian McCaffrey vibes from last year. Like they already don't. It's only June. They don't know if he's gonna be ready week 1. Like I feel like he's gonna be out for like 6 weeks at this point. So and I think they drafted him because they re-signed Godwin, and they kind of like, I guess they realized like, this guy's done. He's not healthy. So he could be the receiver 2 there. Obviously, Evans is there, but Evans is is he 32 now? So I think maybe year 3 or 4 he could be the receiver 1 eventually, but now I think he could be the receiver 2, and I really like his talent. So I've been drafting him more lately, whereas before I was down on him. And I've drafted Golden a little bit too, here and there. He's kind of like when you get to the 8th round and the Colts receivers are off the board. It's like, who do you take? I've taken Matthew Golden at 8% of drafts, and I've taken Egbuka at 7%, but that's going to go higher, I think. So, I'm like I said, I'm coming around in Egbuka. And then we get to picks 25 through 40. Our superstar rate goes down by 1%, 15 to 14. There are no studs here. And then fantasy starters are about the same, down 2%. Bust rate, however, skyrockets from 21 to 36%. So we have Jaden Higgins and Luther Burden to talk about here. Burden has been injured, and even Ben Johnson was frustrated with him, kind of like saying, like, oh, he's not out there, So not looking good for Burden. What do you think about Higgins, though, just because we haven't really seen Burden practice at all?
I think ultimately both of these guys are a long way down the depth chart, and we see that happen a lot with players drafted in this range. They're not drafted to be the number one for their team, and that's clearly the case with Higgins and Burden. I think Burden, even if he was healthy and out there, he's still at best their wide receiver 3 in an offense that just drafted a new tight end in the top 10 as well. It's a pretty ugly situation for Burden, but the only upside there, at least for Burden, is that we know that Ben Johnson has a history of having his quarterbacks use their slot receiver. But that's when your slot receiver is your best player, and I don't think that's going to be the case in Chicago. As for Higgins, I mean, my concern with Higgins is he's not that different to Nico Collins, and they're both playing. So if there's any situation where they want someone like a Higgins, they're going to go to Collins. So Higgins is going to have to work really hard. He's either going to need a Collins injury or he's going to have to find some way of developing into a different role, because I still think that they've got a heap of other wide receivers around. They've got solid running backs as well. I think this offense in general just doesn't pass the ball enough for their wide receiver 2/3 to be a superstar. I feel like his kind of upside is maybe top 30 on your average season.
I can see Higgins doing okay. I've drafted him 7% of the time. He's going like round 10 or so. And especially like, Nico Collins missed time last year, and they had two guys to take over in Diggs and Dell. Like now those guys are gone. At least Dell's gone for this year. And like it's gonna be Higgins, like Kirk, as Brandon's pointing out, Christian Kirk's there. And then you have Jalen Noel to take over when not if, because we know it's gonna be when Christian Kirk gets injured. So yeah, I mean, I think that like Higgins has some potential to do well this year, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely the receiver too for like for a long time, unless like unfortunately if there's an unfortunate injury with Collins for the long term. So yeah, I can see him be like a fantasy starter, for a while. I think I like his talent, but he's definitely not in position to take over as receiver one anytime soon. Okay, so we have picks 41 through 64, Trey Harris and Jack Besh. Trey Harris is getting a lot of buzz. I'm hearing like him as like this year's sleeper guy, sort of like this year's Brian Thomas. That's like I said, I listened to a bunch of shows that he's coming up as a name there. Superstar rate is 6%, which is down from 14% in the previous slide. Studs is up to 14%. Fantasy starters is down 7%, down to 12. And then bust rate goes up from 36% to 48%. Not a surprise to see this bust rate getting closer to 50%. So where do you think that Harris and Besh fit in?
I really like Harris. Harris, to me, is like the poor man's Jaden Higgins, but I think he's actually got more chances to succeed. He reminds me a lot of a Devontae Adams situation where he goes into a pretty good offense with a pretty good quarterback, and the star at the moment is a smaller receiver. In this case, it's Lad McConkey, but Harris is the total opposite of that. He's a big guy. He's got an opportunity to be a true alpha receiver and take over within 2 or 3 years and be the real star for that offense. Because I feel like McConkey simply came in and got a whole heap of targets. I don't think he was actually that special. I think he just looked very solid. I think that Harris can come in and be a true alpha, kind of like Devontae Adams did when he came into Green Bay. As for Jack Besh, I don't like this at all. Even if he's the number one wide receiver, he's the third receiver on the team. Ashton Genty's going to get a heap of targets, and Brock Bowers is their true number one receiver. And yet he goes into a situation which behind Jacoby Myers, and I still think Trey Turner's going to be solid as well. So I think Besh is going to be the guy that's in that 50-odd% that busts. And I think that Harris has way more opportunity to turn into a Devontae Adams or an A.J. Brown situation.
Yeah, it's cool to hear that you're on board with Harris as well. I've taken 8% of drafts, and I think that's going to get higher. Yeah, I mean, he could be the number one on the outside for sure. Like there's, like you said, there's not much resistance there as there is with Nico Collins in Houston. And Besh, I feel like he could be like a nifty slot receiver for the Raiders. But Beef Snake Millen, what rates higher players, 100% USD man or 100% DAF man? I don't know what the exchange rate is. Well, it depends who you ask. If it's Matt Millen, he'll ride those stallions all night long, as he once said on a live broadcast. Very strange. Anyway, round 3, we have 5 guys to talk about here. Superstar rate is actually higher, 7.8% compared to 6.3%. Studs go down a lot though, 14% to 4%. And then fantasy starters also plummet from 12% to 5%. Bust rate now above 50%, up to 57%. So we have a few guys here to talk about. Does anyone stand out to you as like being worth drafting here?
Cedric Tillman, who's one of the busts. I love Cedric Tillman. I'm just going to shout him out here. I know he's not a rookie. Just love me some Cedric Tillman. I feel like he could be very good this year. As for the actual rookies, no one really excites me in this range. I think Isaac Tesla could turn into something long term. I feel like especially if Jamison Williams ends up out the door in the next year or so, all of a sudden Tesla could turn into their number 2. I don't think he has the upside to be a true superstar, but I mean, he is very much a project player, and those guys sometimes boom, but they're also significantly more likely to bust. Most of these guys don't excite me at all, though. I'm not particularly interested in drafting any of them, honestly.
Yeah, me neither. So yeah, we can move on to the next slide, which is rounds 4 and 5. Superstars down to 3%. There are no studs. There is one fantasy starter in Marvin Jones. Bust rate now skyrocketing up to 78.7%. So many of them. Yeah, and this is a 108%, 800 player sample size too. So, I mean, John Sanders, not sure if he's listening right now, but he is the one who always asks, who is this year's Puka Nakua? I actually think that there are a couple possibilities. I actually really like one guy on this list. I'm curious. I don't want to lead the witness. Kind of curious if maybe we've come to the same conclusion, or who do you like here, or who don't you like?
Okay, firstly, I think I know the answer to who you're going to say. I think it's
Okay.
either Jonathan Thornton or it's Alec Imanor. I feel like it could be either of those guys, but neither of those guys are my guy. I actually really like Arian Smith. I feel like he goes into a situation where he could very easily become the wide receiver too very quickly. We've seen Alan Lazard be inactive in games recently. Josh Reynolds is nothing special. Smith has an opportunity, and I feel like he's also got the talent. I think it was a bit of a surprise to me that he was drafted that low. I don't mind either of the Titans guys either. I'm just not that excited about Thornton because same reason that I wasn't excited about Besh. He goes into a situation where he's at best the third receiver on the team, even if he's their wide receiver one.
Well, you named so there are three guys actually like her. You named two of them. Dante Thornton is he's definitely one of my top two guys. I just think that his athleticism and size, like it's rare for a player like that, and I think he has insane potential. Now, maybe the first half of his rookie year he doesn't do much, but I think like as the year progresses, I think he could do a lot. And he's definitely not going to be the first target with Brock Bowers there. But Jacoby Myers has always been a number two. And maybe in New England he was number one, but he's not really a number one. I think that if Thornton really impresses, like Myers could be the receiver two, and Thornton could emerge as the receiver one. Maybe that doesn't happen this year, but I think it could, just based on Thornton's just level of athleticism, and also there have been good reports saying that like he's receiving first team reps, and I think he's worth drafting. I've been taking him in the 17th round. I've taken him at 12% of leagues. But you said my other guy. I also taken him in 12% of leagues. That's Arian Smith. I've definitely I've definitely thought like he went a little later than I thought he would. So I had him like round 3 in my mock draft, I believe, and he went round 4. And then once he was drafted, I go on the Play Like a Jet podcast sometimes, and we answered some emails that Jet fans had, and like I swear there was like 5 or 6 emails from Jet fans who were like, why they reach on Arian Smith. I'm like, reach? Like this guy is insane speed. And like everyone was complaining about how he drops a lot of passes, and like that's a fair criticism. And some guys never learn to stop dropping passes, but that feels like correctable. Whereas like you can't teach the speed he has. And look, I read some mini camp reports, and like things could change when real games start, but I've read that Arian Smith hasn't really dropped anything in mini camp, so that's looking great right now, and it looks like he could be the receiver too, across from Garrett Wilson. There's really not much else there. There's Alan Lazard, like to be traded, so yeah, Arian Smith. I'm a huge fan of Arian Smith. You can get him in the 20th round. He goes undrafted almost every time. So I usually take him like it's either like him or Marcus Valdes-Scantling in like round 20 for me.
Yeah, and you can get him in like the 4th round of a rookie draft as well. And in dynasty leagues, he's going nearly free. It's absolutely insane. Like, I think his chances of being really good this year is low because Justin Fields is the quarterback, and that's awkward. But I think long term, Fields probably isn't the quarterback in 3 or 4 years' time. And by then, Smith has the upside to be like a top 10 fantasy player. Like, the upside is there. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the upside's there, and you want to shoot for that upside as much as possible.
Yeah, and I think it's different for like if I were drafting regular fantasy, which we will be doing in August, like I won't take him, but not this year. But for best ball, like you're looking for 2 or 3 games where he just goes insane. And I think like with his speed, he can catch like an 80-yard touchdown and just get into your lineup that way. I like by the way, I like on their list, I like Marcus Valdes-Scantling being brief value. That's like I feel like that should be his nickname. It's just like he has like 2 or 3 great games every year and then does nothing otherwise.
Marcus brief value Scantling. Like it.
Yeah, it's 5 names in one. All right. So we have round 6, 7 guys. There is no superstars, no studs, no fantasy starters. There's one good backup, Jawan Jennings. So he could maybe emerge this year. He'll have the chance. But bust rate 95%. Man, this is not looking good for any of these guys. Does anyone buck this trend?
The funniest thing for me about Juwan Jennings as well is I've had people say, well, Juwan Jennings did it. I was like, he was drafted in 2020. How many people that got him in 2020 are really happy about his breakout in 2024?
Yeah,
Like, that's not how this works at all. Realistically, I'm not interested in anyone here at all. I think the odds of any of these guys succeeding is very low. If I had to name someone, I might say Caden Prather because it's at least a relatively open situation. He's pretty big. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of the Bills receivers, honestly. I'm really hopeful it's Keon Coleman, but it's not impossible that Prather at least gets an opportunity to take over from the Mac Hollins situation that we saw earlier.
Yeah, it's a confusing situation to say the least for the Bills. I don't know what's making of either, but we'll see. Maybe someone emerges. Maybe it'll be Coleman. Maybe it'll be Palmer, or maybe it'll just be Shakir like it was last year. So we'll see. All right, so we have your rankings here. McMillan is number 1 over Hunter. I'm interested in that. Also, you have Golden over Igbuka, and then you liked Harris, so he's number 6. I'm wondering if you're going to move Burden down because just he's been injured. So do you want to talk about this list?
Yeah, I really struggle with the McMillan Hunter situation. I've kind of bounced them around a little bit. My biggest concern with Hunter, I still think it's feasible that the team gets a year or two in and kind of goes, he's an okay wide receiver, but he's a good cornerback, and it's far easier to have him out there on every snap as a cornerback. It's really hard to kind of put him out as cornerback because you don't know what your opposition's going to do. When you're on defense, you kind of have to be ready for anything. When you're on offense, you can cater specific plays for him. So you can have him out there on 15, 20 snaps on offense and then every snap on defense. That's far easier to manage and that's far easier to prepare for than having him out there on every snap as a wide receiver and then playing him as a cornerback occasionally. No, I think the odds of that happening is still pretty low. I think it's maybe 20 to 30%. But that's a 20 to 30% chance that he's totally useless for fantasy. And you're taking him early in the first round. So for that reason, I feel like McMillan's just a significantly safer player. I think he's the clear number 1 in Carolina. They went out of their way to get him. He is the number 1 guy. How much value that has, I don't really know. But I feel like his ceiling's not as high as Hunter, but I at least feel like his floor is significantly higher. As for Luther Burden, yeah, I would have Trey Harris ahead of him at this stage. I don't like the Burden situation because there's so many other mouths to feed in that situation, which is exactly my issue with Higgins as well. So I would definitely be moving Burden down if I were going to rejig this graphic.
Okay. And then we have Arian Smith, as you mentioned, he's number 11. And then you have a bunch of guys. Pat Bryant stands out, number 14. He was one of those third rounders. Sean Payton praised him, saying that he's looking pretty good. Although, I mean, you would expect coaches to praise guys at this point. The off season, Keandre Lambert-Smith, by the way, the third guy. As I said, I'd like 3 guys. Lambert-Smith is a big guy. He's fast. He's got a good athlete. He blocks well, so it feels like he could be out there. There's just like a lot of guys in front of him, but I think that he could emerge. But yeah, you have him 18, so it's kind of fair. So you want to continue with this analysis?
I struggle with Pat Bryant. I don't understand why they got him in the first place. It seemed like a really weird situation. They've got so many average wide receivers, and they went and got another average wide receiver. I'm interested to see what happens with Ty Felton. If you get an injury to Jefferson or Addison, I feel like he could slide in as the wide receiver too. So for me, I kind of see him nearly a little bit as a handcuff. I just feel like there's a situation where maybe he emerges as something, and I'm willing to take a risk on that in a very deep league or in a deep dynasty league, for example.
That is, we have Mike Lachine on sometimes from NFLRoughDraft.com. He loves Felton. And Jordan Addison might be suspended because he has his DUI court case coming up next month. So if he's found guilty, he could face a suspension. So that could raise Felton. We didn't talk about him either, but he's another guy I drafted a little bit in round 20. Only if I drafted McCarthy. It's kind of like a handcuff. I think it's probably. I'm not going to look it up. I'm probably drafting like 3% of leagues or 2%. Okay, so that is it for receivers. Now we go to tight ends. We have 2 top 16 guys this year, Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren. And then this is pretty simple. 40% superstars, 60% studs, 0% busts. So, what do you think these guys fit in? Any chance for bust here, or are these going to be superstars and studs?
Well, the other really interesting thing about this is that before Brock Bowers last year, um, every number one tight end in the last like 16 years was taken on day two, which I don't really understand. Like there's 6 number one tight ends before Brock Bowers, and they're all day two tight ends, and yet every day one tight end is a success. It's just they're never the number one tight end. So you're going to get a really low floor on both of these guys because tight ends don't generally get taken in the top 16 picks. It's really rare. It's happened 5 times in over 20 years. And I do think that we're going to get really positive outcomes out of both of them. I just question how soon they're going to happen. I think with Tyler Warren, there is a realistic chance that within a year or two, we are talking about him as at least a top 10 tight end, maybe a top 5 tight end, because there aren't really that many other weapons. He just needs a quarterback that's actually going to use him. And I'm not sure that Anthony Richardson is. I think Daniel Jones might, but I'm not sure that Richardson is going to check down enough to really make it happen. He's more inclined to run. As for Colston Loveland, I'm very concerned that this is going to be more of a like a Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox situation rather than a Brock Bowers and a Michael Mayer situation. And where that goes is really going to make a difference to how much value you get out of Loveland. The other issue, of course, is they've got 3 very good wide receivers, or at least expensive wide receivers. And of course, they want to run the ball too. And they've got a second-year quarterback. So it's hard to see Loveland being successful in the next year or two. But I think long-term, he is going to emerge as a very good fantasy player.
Yeah, I don't think I've drafted Loveland. I've taken Warren 7% of leagues. By the way, Felton's higher than I thought. He was 6%. So, yeah, I do like Warren. I was kind of confused that the Bears took Loveland over him, but Ben Johnson does know his offense, so I'm willing to trust in this regard. So we'll see. But I definitely agree with you as far as these players are concerned. Then we get to picks 41 through 64. There are 3 guys: Mason Taylor, and then Ferguson for the Rams, and Arroyo from the Seahawks. By the way, the same bye week as I painfully learned in a recent draft. So we have 1 superstar in Gronk, 7% of studs, 25% fantasy starters, and a 50% bust rate, which is pretty scary if you're drafting these guys. I think I took Mason Taylor once. I think I took Arroyo a few times. Never taken Ferguson. What are your thoughts on these guys? How do you think they're going to fit in?
It's hard to say because we don't really know what to expect from the Jets offense this year. I was kind of a little bit positive about Taylor because I thought he might take over from Tyler Conklin, and Conklin's been quietly like a top 15 tight end most years in the last couple of seasons. There's never anything showy there, but especially in PPR, he's been useful. And at least we know that Taylor can block, so he's going to be out there on every snap, so there's going to be opportunities. Ferguson, I know you love Tyler Higbee. I think Ferguson could take over from Higbee depending on Higbee's health. I think it's all going to depend on whether Higbee can stay healthy. And if he can't, all of a sudden I can imagine Ferguson being an every down guy. If Higbee can stay healthy, all of a sudden Ferguson goes to this situation like a Luke Shoemaker, where they've got their starter, they've got their backup, and it just stays like that indefinitely until the end of time. As for Arroyo, I feel like this is very much a committee situation. If Arroyo is going to be used as a starter, I feel very confident it's going to be a Bills situation where he's kind of like the Dalton Kincaid to a Dawson Knox, who's more the blocking guy. But over time, he might develop into an every down player.
Yeah, I can see that. I like Arroyo. It's a good athlete. All right, we have 1 guy in round 3, Harold Fannin, 5%, 5.6% superstar, and also studs. 8.3% fantasy starters, 66.7% bust rate. This guy's stuck behind David Njoku for the time being, so can't really justify drafting him right now. Any thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's stuck behind David Njoku, and you can't justify drafting him right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. He is kind of like a different player. They could use 2 tight end sets, but you can't really draft him. All right, rounds 4 and 5, we have a small 1.4% superstar rate in George Kittle, 2.9% studs, 2.9% fantasy starters, and a 75% bust rate with these 5 players. Anyone stand out to you here?
I don't really like any of them. I mean, even if Gunnar Helm somehow gets past Chiga Okonkwo, how much do you want the Titans tight end? I don't know that you're particularly excited about that. Gadsden is potentially interesting. At least he goes into a situation where it's a relatively weak depth chart ahead of him. I think he could easily get past a Tyler Conklin and a Will Dissly, as much as they love Dissly. But other than that, I'm not excited about any of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Rondé Gadsden's dad. Like he started playing football when I first started this website, so it's pretty cool to see his son here. Although it makes me feel old at the same time. But yeah, like the Chargers don't have much competition at tight end. Although I mean, I guess Will Dissly's still there, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's I read that he's looking good in practice, but like, what does that mean at this point? Um, all right, so late round guys, 0% superstars. The one stud was Darren Waller, who was really a receiver and turned tight end. And then bust rate 96.7%. Yeah, I can't really touch any of these guys, right?
Absolutely not. Like I was really hopeful about Luke Lachey coming in because I had him in College Dynasty. I thought that he was going to end up being positive, but you can't trust anyone going in the seventh round. You're actually more likely to have success as an undrafted free agent than you are in the seventh round. At least we've had like Juwan Johnson and people like that come through as undrafted free agents, but as a sixth and seventh round guy, it's technically even uglier.
Yeah, it's pretty horrendous. Before we break down your rankings, do you have time to do a best ball draft?
Absolutely.
Okay, so as you talk through these rankings, I will enter in a best ball draft just to kind of expedite things. Hopefully, we don't have to wait too long for a league. I don't suspect we will. All right, so your rookie rankings, you have Warren over Loveland. We discussed that, and then do you want to break this down? I
Yeah,
see you have
absolutely.
Gasson as we talked about at number 8. So do you want to break
Yeah.
this down?
Sure. So Warren over Loveland, I think there's just more opportunity for him to start sooner. Loveland goes to a difficult situation where there's so many mouths to feed, and I feel like you just don't want that for fantasy. You want your tight end to be one of the main guys on the team. You want him playing every snap, but I don't think we can trust that with Loveland. Loveland for me is actually closer to a Mason Taylor than he is to a Tyler Warren in certainly in the near future. So for that reason, I'd definitely be taking Warren if I'm looking for a tight end. Taylor's interesting because at least he's likely to be playing every down, but Arroyo arguably has a little bit more upside as a receiver, and we do like that for fantasy. You just got to be patient. I wouldn't be taking him too high this year. Terrence Ferguson's very much a handcuff for Tyler Higbee. Fannon's very much a handcuff for David Njoku, and everyone behind this, it gets pretty ugly. Gadsden is interesting, as you said. I think the odds of him being the starter this year is low. We see with most day 3 tight ends, it does take them a while to develop. And I think that's going to be the case with Gadsden and also Evans, who has a pretty weak depth chart ahead of him. But again, the odds of him becoming a starter is low. And even if he becomes the starter, how much do you want the Carolina tight end? I don't. I can tell you that much. Luke Lachey, I'm only interested in because I think if he hangs around and waits behind Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper within 3 or 4 years, maybe he's the starter, but you'd have to have a very deep league for that to be relevant to you.
Yeah, very very deep league here. We're talking about like 20 teams or something at that rate, or maybe even more. Which, by the way, I was once in a 20 person league, and the draft was painful because I had the first pick. I didn't get to pick again until pick number 40, which is like they go like everyone's gone by then. It's just a very weird league. And like if you have a couple injuries, like your team's done. You just can't
Oh, yeah.
add anyone. There's no one on waivers at all. So I was like, never again. Like, why would I do this? And then the other end of the spectrum, I once did a 6-person league, but we had to play 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 5 receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 defenses. So like as you would expect, like the scoring there was ridiculous. Like you'd have games of like 390 to 280, like just because there's so many fantasy points going around with like 2 quarterbacks and 5 receivers. Like it was crazy. But that I didn't like that either. It was like the other end of the spectrum, like just way too many points. And like if a few of you guys don't show up, like you're just way behind with all these points going around. So
Absolutely. That college fantasy dynasty league I talked about is one where you draft the players in college, you play the college fantasy league, and then they go into your NFL fantasy league,
that's cool.
32 team league with IDP. It's absolutely ridiculous. Ray McLeod was a star for me last year. Like that's what we're talking about. And you're only starting like 2 wide receivers and a flex. It's just ridiculous. But the IDP does make it interesting because at least you have players who are starting on the IDP.
You know what? I've never done IDP before. I just like it's so counterintuitive at some positions. Like some positions it's not because like the edge rusher, linebacker, they get to tackles, they get their sacks. Like yeah, that makes sense. But like cornerback, I felt like you could just never quantify cornerbacks well because like the best cornerbacks don't post the best stats. Like they just don't get thrown at. Like I assume like I don't know what Darrell Revis's interception totals were when he was at his peak, but like just no one would throw at him, so he just would not accrue any stats. You know what I mean? So that always, I don't know, I always found that confusing. You know, he went the cornerbacks who were like not great, but okay.
Yeah, slot cornerbacks become extremely valuable all of a sudden because they're always getting tackles. And someone like a Dron Bland, who's getting a heap of interceptions, suddenly becomes a superstar, but only for one season because those players who get a lot of interceptions, they very rarely do it on a consistent basis. It's very weird.
Yeah. Have you ever played a vampire league? What is that?
Yeah.
Do you draft vampires, or are they positioned like? Is
A vampire league is very
on?
cool. So the idea of a vampire league is that one player is the vampire. They don't draft a team at all. So they're not involved in the draft. And at the end of the draft, before anyone else can do anything, they create a team using free agents. Then every week, if they win their matchup, they steal a player from the team they played against and swap it out for one of their starters of the same position. In my case, you could have it with different rules. And over the course of the season, obviously their team gets more and more powerful as they're taking away people's best players. And so you then have this strategy of, do I put my best team in against the vampire, or do I just play a rubbish team and not risk losing a player? It becomes very, very interesting. So it is very fun. But I got to be honest, if you're not the vampire, it's significantly less interesting. It's more just annoying for 1 week of the year.
That is very cool. I'd never heard of that before. That's awesome. I would love to play that. I'd love to be the vampire. I'm sure everyone would love to be the vampire.
Walter Football Vampire League. We're doing it. Let's go.
Let's do it. No, that's awesome. Much more interesting than drafting Dracula and Alucard. I don't know any vampires beyond that. I guess the vampires from
Twilight?
True Blood, which was I don't know. Did you ever watch True Blood? It was a good show for the first season, and then it fell apart very poorly. That was a good show. It was about like and we're kind of filibustering here because we're waiting for a draft, which is about to start right now. So let me zoom in. We have a minute to BS here for the draft. Oh wait, no, my pick. Nice. So that show was all about how vampires were instead of in the closet, they're in the coffin, but they just came out. And so the people's reaction to these vampires. And of course, you have like people who are racist against vampires. And so there's like a serial killer who goes around killing vampires. So they kind of have to figure out who it is. And like, it was a really cool show for a season. But then by the end, you get like weird things. Like they did one season where there were season 2 was like werewolves, which is like dumb already. When like we already have vampires, why do we need werewolves? So season 4 was like were-panthers. And it's like they're just like meth head versions of werewolves. Like it was so dumb. By the end, there was like these fairies and whatnot. It was ridiculous. The show really went off. When it really jumped the shark. Just say that. But the first season's definitely worth checking out. I love the first season. So that's recommended TV for this episode. Anyway, what'd you say?
Put on my holiday watch list.
Exactly. All right, so we have the first pick. Who are we taking? Number 1.
Chase.
Chase is on the case, as my son would say, because he loves Paw Patrol. I just can't wait till because that's something Tony Romo says too. And you can tell Tony Romo, I think he has kids, or at least he has kids in his life via siblings. Because when Jamar Chase scores a touchdown, he's like, Chase is on the case. I can't wait for the Bengals to get a player named Marshall, because then he could say, Marshall's fired up. I've watched way too much Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol is just a poor man's Bluey. We know that Bluey's where it's at. Like Bluey is literally from my hometown. Like Bluey is where I live. Like this is Blueyville here. So we cannot talk about any other kids' TV here.
That's true. I never put 2 and 2 together. That's true. But you'll be glad to know my kids did watch Bluey. At least my son. And it was weird. Like he was into Mario, which I loved as a kid. And then I went away to Vegas for my annual trip. I come home and he's watching this show with like blue and orange dogs. I'm like, what is going on here? So he got into Bluey. That came out of nowhere. But then he got into Paw Patrol. What is Dak Prescott?
Yeah.
Man, I think this league's no. I hope that dude guy drafts a real team, because we could be dealing with a canceled draft here. which we saw. Kenny and I did a draft a few weeks ago where the guy at the turn took, I think he took Caleb Johnson and Blake Bell. And so that league got canceled. We were refunded. Prescott at least is like a real player, if you're a fantasy player, but you're not taking him in round 1. You're taking him round 9 or 10, maybe 9 to be safe. But yeah, look, we can analyze, what else we have. CeeDee Lamb at 3 is interesting. I have not seen him go that high, and I've had issues kind of projecting CeeDee Lamb. Like, where would you take him in the first round, or not?
I think in this situation where you're starting 3 wide receivers and 2 running backs, probably taking him 4th. I think it's arguable where he goes compared to the running back. It really depends on how you want to structure your team, but I think there is a reasonable argument to take him after Chase, Jefferson, and Barkley. But in a best ball, I feel like you probably want that stud running back, so I'm probably taking him a little bit later than that.
Okay, Chase, Jefferson, Barkley. Yeah, so you said Lamb 4. What do you think about Malik Neighbors? I've been drafting him. Like, when I get like the 6th pick, I've been taking Neighbors. I just think his upside is insane. He had so many targets last year, and like that was with bad quarterbacking. So like you can't even say like, oh, he has bad quarterbacking, because he thrived with that last year. I just think he could be. It wouldn't surprise me at all if this time next year he's like the top 3 player. I don't. What do you think about him before
I agree. I think I really struggle valuing he and Puka Nacua next to each other, because I feel like they both have massive upside. They're both going to be the clear number 1 targets for their teams. I feel like both could be very good for fantasy. How you value them compared to the running backs is also really tricky. You know how much I love a Christian McCaffrey, for example. But I could certainly understand a situation where you'd want to take Neighbors at 6. I think that makes a heap of sense.
Yeah, I just think his upside is insane. I'm hopeful that dude takes a good player here. Okay, well, look, he's going all out with Dallas. He's just a big Cowboy fan. I don't know if we're going to get refunded for this. I hope not. I would like for him to pay the rake. McConkey goes 208. So we're 3 picks away. We kind of just start looking at what we're drafting. HN just went. The top players available: AJ Brown, Bucky Irving, Rashee Rice, Josh Jacobs, Trey McBride, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Josh Allen, Chase Brown, Lamar Jackson. So who are you thinking here? We have 2 more picks before we're up.
I think Josh Jacobs is interesting with H-Hand gone there. Brian Thomas hasn't he, and some Brown's gone. So I think AJ Brown probably the next guy. Is he still around?
He just went. So
yeah.
And then we'll see who this next guy takes. But you mentioned Josh Jacobs. Is anyone else? Because we have 2 picks in a row here.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to go with someone like a Jackson Smith-Njigba or a T. Higgins. We could go back-to-back running back, I guess, potentially. That would be like a Chase Brown, for example, if he's still around.
Chase Brown's still there, as is Jackson Smith-Njigba. Jackson Smith-Njigba there. You mentioned Higgins. Let's take Josh Jacobs with that pick, and then we can decide what we're doing next. Between Chase Brown, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and T. Higgins, who you like the most?
Normally, I'd say Jackson Smith-Njigba, but I feel like in a best ball situation, I feel like Higgins has a little bit more upside. Having said that, we did go wide receiver earlier, so it would be reasonable to take Brown as well. I'd be happy with Brown or Higgins. I'll leave it up to you.
Well, because you never see Higgins and Chase go off together usually, like maybe once in a while, I'll take Chase Brown. And then I'm hoping we can get Joe Burrow at the turn next time to kind of complete the stack. I just don't like Chase and Higgins together. Like it's usually one or the other going off. I feel like, I don't know, maybe misremembering, but I can't think of an example outside of like a rare one where they both had monster games. So I don't know. I feel like in best ball, it'd be different if it was regular fantasy, but like best ball, you want your guys to like just have the absolute ceiling, and I feel like they kind of like constrict each other a little bit. I don't know. Right. Higgins goes 305. Tyreek Hill goes 306. Let's see what that dude does. Jane Daniels is actually like a reasonable pick here. It's outside of the fact that he took a quarterback in the first round. If he didn't take Prescott and just went like anyone else instead who went after him, like this would actually make sense. Although Pickens is still reach a 206, but I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna get refunded. We'll see. It depends on if the rest of his draft looks logical. I will definitely let you guys know if we get refunded. 3 quarterbacks in a row here, by the way. Daniels, Allen, and Jackson, and of course Prescott first off the board. Anything stand out to you as like rounds 2 and 3 outside of the Pickens pick as like being like a reach or maybe great value, or like what do you see here in the first?
I feel like everything's been pretty much in line this round. I was surprised to see McConkey and Rice go in the second round. I know we talked about that happening, but that's too early for me when you've got some of the other guys that were on the board there. Amazing that JSN hasn't gone yet. I just feel like he's so safe in PPR. He's got such a good floor. He's someone you can kind of like base your team around in a best ball where he's going to get really good weekly scores.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't gone either. I mean, we were considering him a 301. I assume he's not going to fall back to us. Like that would be shocking. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him go around 4. He usually goes like the latest I've seen him was 312, which was the other day. But yeah, this is interesting. I assume he's going to be picked in the next 3 or 4 picks. Unfortunately, and then we see George Kittle there around 4, and we're kind of entering the territory where I call the dead zone, which is round 4. And I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on like as round 4 develops, because outside of quarterbacks and tight ends, I just find like round 4 extremely underwhelming. Now I'm not talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba because he hasn't gone yet. I feel like that dude kind of messed around with his ADP here. I think once we get past Jackson Smith and Jigba, there's really no one I'm excited about in round 4 outside of quarterbacks and tight ends, which is why I usually just draft a quarterback or a tight end in round 4. But we'll see this unfold before our very eyes here. But before that happens, though, I wanted to ask you a question. Just look at the 12 players, actually 11 players drafted in the first round, not Prescott. Of those 11, who do you think has the highest chance of busting?
Nico Collins, I think.
Okay.
I think he's the biggest reach. I mean, let's take out injuries and let's say purely based on outcome. I think that Collins has the most chance of busting. I think the running backs at least have a really clear amount of volume they're going to get. I think Neighbors and Nakua are at least the clear number ones on their team. We don't know what impact having a whole heap of wide receivers come in is going to have on Nico Collins. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens.
I can see that. I can see that happening. I think you can make a case for Christian McCaffrey, but he has insane upside too. The fact that he hasn't finished 3 of the last 5 seasons, there's Jackson Smith and Jigba. Oh man, Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I think we're getting refunded for this league. We can at least talk about the picks. Yeah, very painful that Jackson Smith and Jigba goes 405, whereas like there's like a sliver of hope that we had that he'd fall to us, but unfortunately not. I don't know what that dude plans on doing with a lot of these quarterbacks. Just messing up this league, I guess.
I was hoping Mike Evans would fall to us. That's very disappointing.
Evans usually goes like 401, so this is definitely later than I thought. But no, the round 4 is almost complete. Let's get to our pick here. So the top players available are James Cook, DK Metcalf, Xavier Worthy, Jameson Williams. I'm going to start Joe Burrow. He's going to be one of our picks if he's there. Who just went? Cook went. And Metcalf went. So we're up. So who do you like outside of Burrow here? We have Worthy.
Definitely Burrow, obviously. James Conner is the next running back for me. I feel like on a weekly basis, he's got really good upside. He scores so many touchdowns. I feel like he's pretty safe in this situation. Wide receiver wise, my next wide receiver off the board, I think is Cortland Sutton, who I feel pretty good about. But I don't know. If I had to pick, I'd probably go with Connor of the 2, but I do know it gets a little bit ugly for wide receivers later on, so I'd be fine with either of those 2.
Yeah, I think Sutton is the way to go here. We have 2 running backs already, so I'd rather. I like Sutton a lot. I've usually taken like early round 5, which we are 501. So let's take Sutton here, and then let's analyze round 4. So I'm not counting Jackson Smith and Jigba. He usually goes round 3, and the rest of these guys. So Chuba Hubbard's ADP has been like round 5. So this was technically a reach, but I don't mind Hubbard. But I feel like this is kind of like the dead zone, like I said. Devontae Adams for me is he could be good, but he's also 33. It's kind of the danger zone for receivers. McMillan, we talked about him. Brees Hall, don't really trust him because his receptions are going to go down because of Justin Fields. DJ Moore could lose his number one status potentially. He even said he expects to do less this year. Adunze could really emerge. Mike Evans, you mentioned Mike Evans, and at the end of the fourth round, I don't mind him, but like early fourth round when he's going to be 32, I worry about that. James Cook, potential holdout, potential touchdown regression, and then Metcalf usually goes around 5. So there's like round 4, and this kind of creeps into round 5 here. Xavier Worthy, Jameson Williams, and Travis Hunter, and Omarion Hampton, other names usually go round 4. I don't like those guys in round 4. Am I crazy, or am I like missing some obvious plays in round 4? Like, what do you think? What do you make of this dead zone area?
Look, I agree with you. I feel like this is the sort of situation where it makes a lot of sense to go quarterback or tight end. I think Kittle's solid value there. I think Burrow's great value for us at the end of the fourth round relative to everyone else going. Smith-Njigba is obviously a massive bargain here. I still like Mike Evans, especially in best ball, because we know he has those massive weeks. And I feel like any of those sorts of plays are always going to have more value in a best ball. I think if this was a non-best ball league, I'd be less excited about Evans there. But I feel like at 409, that's a pretty good pick.
Yeah, 409 is not bad. It's just like when he goes 311, 312, 401. I'm like, not great. But like you're right that he is he's good for best ball because he either goes nuts or I feel like he just has like a mediocre week, which is it's what you want out of best ball. Our guy here at the 7th pick took Jake Ferguson to kind of complete his Dallas stack. Yeah. Maybe he was tilted that Lamb was taken earlier. I don't know. I think it would have been great if Lamb were still available at 7 because his draft would have been that messed up. But anyway, I wanted to ask you about Calvin Ridley at 508 because his ADP is on the rise. Felt like a month and a half ago, his ADP was like round 7, and now it's like round 5. And I was drafting him around 7, but like now that it's round 5, I'm just not sure. I said like don't draft players in bad offenses, but I think Tennessee's offense could be better this year. So what do you make of Ridley now that he's going in the 5th round?
I think if I look at the other players that are going around him, he's probably a little bit lower than most of them. I think he's a lot better in like late 6th, early 7th round. I'd much rather have someone like a Zay Flowers who's in a similar situation where it's where he's kind of like the number one receiver on an offense that's not going to pass the ball a massive amount. I feel like in that situation, I'd rather take Flowers. And I feel like there's more upside players around with like a Jamison Williams or a Jordan Addison. On a weekly basis, they're going to have more big weeks. So I don't know. We talk about trying to avoid plays in bad offenses, and the Titans is a bad offense. And I feel like even though Ridley's the clear number one, we don't know what we're going to get out of Cam Ward. We don't know what exact role Ridley's going to have there. So it's a bit of an awkward situation.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's offense might not be bad this year. Like they were horrible last year, but it really depends on Cam Ward, right? I mean, if Cam Ward is a much better quarterback than Levis or Rudolph, and he's putting in the work as we talked about earlier, I think that enhances Tennessee's offense. And I like that they signed Kevin Zeitler away from the Lions to upgrade guard, and they also signed Dan Moore to move their left tackle from last year to right tackle, which it's better. CJ Latham, it's like a better position, it's a better situation for him. And they have Pollard, they have Spears, like they have some real players. Chiggy Bang Bang is not bad. Like I think their team, like they're not like a great offense by any means, but I think they could be average, So I don't know. I kind of like Ridley, but I agree with what you said. Like, it seems like he's going a little too early now, but Cam Ward did really praise him and said he really liked working with him. So maybe there's something to that. By the way, this guy has 4 quarterbacks now. This is, maybe he thinks this is a 2 QB format, or maybe he's just messing around. I don't know. I'll say this though, he hasn't drafted any fake players like Blake Bell, so there's a chance that this league may not be canceled. All right, so we're up in 2 picks. RJ Harvey's the top guy, no interest there. Then we have Samuel, Judy, Dunze, Addison, Olave, who just went. Harvey just went. And then we're up on the boards. Judy just went. So who do you like here? We have 2 picks.
I think Jordan Addison is one I like. I think we fill out our wide receivers. Aaron Jones is not bad here. Neither is DeAndre Swift. Could go towards a tight end like a TJ Hawkinson, but with one guy taking 4 quarterbacks, all of a sudden quarterbacks are going to increase in value. It wouldn't be crazy to take a Baker Mayfield here, for example.
I think we can take one a little bit later. I think I'd rather draft receivers. We only have 3, So we took Addison. Any interest in Odunze or Olave or Samuel or anyone else? We can take a running back.
I'd only prepped 2 because I expected Judy to make it there. Okay. I mean, no, I don't really like any of the receivers in this range at all.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll take Swift. We take Swift because we just took Addison. So, Okay. So we have our 3rd running back. We have 3 receivers and a quarterback. So you said you don't like any receivers here. You don't like Odunze. I feel myself liking him because I think he could be a real breakout this year. Last year he just got taken. Last year he had some big games. He had a lot of non-games as well. But he has experience now, and he has a much better coach coaching him. The offensive line's much better. Caleb Williams should be better. And I think there's a chance that he passes DJ Moore as the receiver 1. I'm not saying that for certain, but I think there's a chance. So why don't you like Odunze? I'm kind of curious.
I feel like there's too many mouths to feed, and we don't know where he sits in that offense. They just brought in Colston Loveland. They just brought in Luther Burden. They're going to be able to run the ball a little bit more effectively with that improved defensive line. We don't really know what Caleb Williams is going to do. We don't know how much DJ Moore is going to be used and how that's going to look. We don't know what this offense is going to look like at all. So there is a chance, and I agree he has upside, but I feel like the odds of him hitting is significantly lower than a lot of the other guys in this range.
Okay, that makes sense. I agreed with the too many mouths to field, but you had Burden not practicing, Loveland not practicing. Like, it feels like Odunze could take the next step. I love his talent too. Like there were some teams that had him very close to Neighbors and Harrison. So and he was a top 10 pick. I think he could have a monster year. But you could be right. Like there's could be too many guys there as well. So so you didn't like Debo either, or Diggs, or Olave, or Shakir. No interest in any of those guys.
I mean, I don't mind Olave. I think Olave is at least the number 1 in the offense, and they're going to have to pass the ball a little bit because they're going to be trailing plenty. But that's assuming the offense is at least functional, which I think is a big question mark there. But compared to everyone else going in this range, Olave definitely stands out.
Yeah, he does violate the rule of bad player on bad offense, but he's good. He's really good, and he is the number 1. It's not like he was going like round 2, round 3 last year. He's now round 7. It's quite the discount. So I feel like that's factored in. The player on bad teams. So I don't mind him. I have drafted him on some occasions. What's my rate here? Olave I've drafted in 12% of drafts. So. I think he's the only player from the Saints I've drafted. I don't think I've taken Kamara outside of maybe like once or twice. Do you like what'd you say?
I said that makes a lot of sense.
Do you like Kamara?
I mean, it depends what range he's going in. I think in this draft he ended up going like 509, like late-ish 5th round. Like it's only because I like James Conner. He's actually really good value there. I think a lot of people are taking these like wide receiver 2s on teams when there's still very good running back 1s around, and that's not how I would personally do things. I do understand this is a 3 wide receiver league, but you can get so many solid, viable wide receivers later on that I just wouldn't personally do things that way if it were me.
Yeah, interesting. I find myself just being underwhelmed by the receivers once we get past like round 9. So I'm kind of curious to see who you like. I mean, we have talked about like Arian Smith and Trey Harris, maybe Jaden Higgins, but you weren't as high on him. So yeah, I'm kind of curious to hear get some names as far as late round receivers. You did mention Cedric Tillman. I like him too. I've drafted a lot. I've drafted a lot of Tillman. Not like maybe not like a huge amount. Let's see. I drafted him 21% of leagues. So we're on the same page with Tillman, and like
I like that.
That number is only high because he goes like round 15. So
That's true.
Aaron Jones just goes. I just didn't want. Yeah, I know that's crazy. 804 is insane. I didn't want Jones because we had Addison. There's a clash there. Although we did take Brown with Chase, but I feel like that's just it was too good to pass up. All right, well, Jane on Blue goes to Cam Scatterbo, which actually like is a little later. This is the first time he's taken value. I guess Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels were value too. But it's not like real value. It's like value compared to like other picks that we've seen from Scatterbo. Where he's gone like round 7 for some reason. So I don't know. this guy's had an interesting draft. He paid $20 for this, so I hope he gets his money's worth. It's not like a free league, What do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's not like a free league. Like he paid $20 for this. All right. All right. So Hawkinson's still available. You mentioned. Never mind. Just went. Never mind. So you mentioned quarterback. We have Sutton, so I'm going to star Bo Nix. I don't know if you want to take him, but I'm going to star him. Anyone else stand out to you? We're going to shift to running backs. We have Robinson, Warren, Tracy, Harris, Mason. Receivers, we have Mooney, Ayuk, Egbuka, Pittman, Higgins, Coleman, Harris down there. Tight ends, we have Ingram, Andrews, Jonnu Smith, Warren, and Bo Nix just went, so never mind about him. So anyone you like?
I personally like Ayuk here. And I'd be tempted to take Ayuk and maybe Pittman. I also really like Coleman. I feel like the upside's there with Coleman. So I would probably take 2 of those 3 and flesh out the wide receivers.
Okay. Well, I think, based on ADP, Coleman could come back to us. So I would say Ayuk and Pittman are the favorites here because it's unlikely that they'll come back to us, especially Ayuk. So let's draft Ayuk. And that's our 4th receiver. So I like having one more. You wouldn't like Egbuka over Pittman? Why Pittman? We could draft him, but like why Pittman?
I think he's just highly likely to be the number 1, assuming he's healthy, and the number 1 receiver in this range is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. Is he the last number 1 receiver?
I'd say so. New England maybe.
Oh well, Diggs went earlier. So.
Oh no, Diggs did go. Okay, well Diggs should be later, but
yeah,
I think so. And Myers is gone too, isn't he?
Who went?
Jacoby Myers.
Oh yeah, Jacoby Myers went. Yeah. Myers, I believe, went 7th round. Usually, 709. He just usually goes around that range. Ayuk. Do you want to touch on Ayuk because his torn ACL obviously is a worry. What do you think about him?
I still think when he's healthy, he's the number 1 receiver, and I do realize the number 1 receiver isn't that valuable when you've got someone like a George Kittle and a Christian McCaffrey there. That's the main reason I'm easing away from Juwan Jennings. But we've seen Brandon Ayuk have massive seasons. We know the upside is there, even with Brock Purdy, and we know that they're going to need to pass the ball. So I feel like you're getting so much more value taking Ayuk here than you are taking Jennings way earlier. I think that Ayuk is the better player when healthy. That health question mark is the big concern, obviously.
Yeah, no, for sure. I usually have a rule to just avoid receivers coming off torn ACLs, and we have seen receivers like play well off torn ACLs, but generally they do tend to struggle or like aggravate some sort of other injury just when they're compensating. So I feel like the bust rate has been high enough where I just want to avoid it. But at the same time, Ayuk at 812 has good value. Like if he busts, I don't think that's going to tank our team. So I think there's definitely an upside to kind of warrant that consideration of Ayuk there at 812. And I mentioned Egbuka earlier. How close would Egbuka be for you with the 2 receivers we took? And obviously, you mentioned Coleman as well, who, by the way, hasn't gone yet.
I don't have confidence in Egbuka being a viable fantasy starter all season. I feel like he could be very useful early on, but I can easily see a situation where halfway through the season, Chris Godwin comes back and all of a sudden it gets really ugly for Tampa, and Egbuka's kind of the number 3 receiver, or is he the number 4 receiver, depending on how he's playing relative to McMillan. there's enough to have me concerned there. Plus, they're going to run the ball a heap. We know how much they like using Irving and White, so I don't know that you can necessarily know that he's going to get the same sort of output that he might have gotten last season, depending on how the offense goes.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I think there's a chance Godwin just misses just a lot of time and isn't healthy when he returns. Like that was so weird when they drafted Ibuka 19th because they had so many other needs and receiver was their perceived strength. But given that like we now know that Godwin's probably going to miss week 1, I just wonder how long he's going to be out. You know, like I made this point before, but if he's already like questionable for week 1 in June, like how much time is going to miss? And if he comes back, like does he aggravate the injury? You know, I really worry about him, and I think like his health was a big reason why they drafted Ibuka at 19. But I could be wrong, but I felt the same way about the Falcons when they took Penix and they had Cousins. You know, so. It's kind of reminds me of the situation where like Cousins had some good games, but then he turned into like this giant turd like right away, like in October and November. He just couldn't stop throwing interceptions. It's very, very crazy, you know.
Godwin's not old though. Like he's still in his 20s.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a player who's like washed due to age. So
yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think just with the injury, you know, it could just be pretty bad. And like it's like twofold, you know, because Godwin has the injury and Evans has the age right now, so they could be thinking we need Ibuka over Godwin this year, and come 2 years from now we might need Ibuka over Evans. So like the more I graded that pick poorly at the time, I kind of regret that. It was like one of my biggest draft grade regrets. Is not grading that better. I just think that there's a chance that it just makes a lot of sense, and Ibuka is going to be a superstar. But we'll see. We're up in 2 picks. And Coleman's still there, so we could definitely take him. Running backs are Harris. We have 3 of these, so we don't need one now. Harris, Etienne, Charbonnet, Williams, Javonte Williams, Dobbins, Stevens, etc. There's Gorendo down there. Harris just went. We're on the clock, by the way. So we're gonna lock in Coleman. Tight ends, I don't know if you like any of these. Jonnu Smith, David Njoku, Colson, Loveland, Tucker Kraft. Quarterback, there's Herbert, Love, Penix, Tua. Who are you thinking?
I wouldn't mind taking Herbert, and I wouldn't mind taking Jonnu Smith or David Njoku. I think either would be fine, but I think we're going to find tight ends later on. I'm not convinced that we're going to find quarterbacks or wide receivers of that same value. So I think Coleman and Herbert make sense here. I was really hoping JJ McCarthy would fall. I saw him falling down earlier. And we also got sniped for Hawkinson earlier. There's been a couple of good players that I think would have been really good value that got taken right before us in the last couple of rounds. So, hopefully we get a little bit more value dropping. It seems to always be that guy picking 4th that's getting guys on the way back.
I know he's sniped us a few times there with Hawkinson, McCarthy. He was stacking them at least. Did he take Jefferson? Let's see. Yeah, he took Jefferson too. So. Full team stack there. Maybe he was mad at us that we took Addison. Maybe he thought he could get him 704. So this is revenge. I always say that like I always felt like this is very different than regular fantasy because like regular fantasy you do a league with your friends or coworkers. Like it's cutthroat. Like you want to screw these guys as much as possible, you know, to win. I think in best ball, and people don't necessarily do this. I think people should be more cooperative in best ball. Like try to like don't interfere with anyone else's plans. I wish there was a chat, so I just like explain that to these people. Like you shouldn't interfere with other people's plans because like the goal is not to win this league. Obviously that's step 1. The goal is to win the grand prize, which is $2 million. So like if everyone's cooperative and lets everyone's stack fulfill, then like people coming out, whoever wins this pod, this league, actually it's the top 2 who advance. Whoever advances should have the best chance of winning down the road, you know? So, and that's especially true for the playoffs when you can really screw over people's stacks. So I always wish there was a chat here so I could explain that to people, you know?
I totally agree. It's a very different situation. I also hate the fact that we're drafting on the turn. I really dislike drafting on the turn. You can't get any value because the average time between picks is like 11 picks, when usually if you're drafting in the middle, the average time between picks is only like 6 or so picks that players are going to fall. So I did an analysis and averaged out how the odds of a player falling to you based on how many picks they fall, and it really hurts you badly picking on either turn. Obviously, at least when you're picking at one, you at least get one good player out the gate, but I would ideally much rather be picking around six or seven.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you say that. I don't mind picking at the turn. I guess the data disputes that. Like like you said. To me, it just I just like being able to make two decisions at once and just like letting the chips fall. I don't know. Maybe that's just lethargy speaking. But that's you do get more time. And I usually do best ball drafts when I'm like working or something. And this really screws me up. So like if we're drafting like for example, if we're drafting at the turn here, I'm just doing this by myself. And the next draft, I have like the second pick. What usually happens is once I get to 211, I queue up two players. Okay, I'm gonna take this guy and this guy right now. And like I pick the first guy and I try clicking the second. I'm like, wait, this doesn't work. What happened? Like, wait a second. Oh, I'm not at the turn. I'm at the second spot, not the first spot. So that screws me up too.
Yeah.
That's just that I don't know. It's more lethargy. I don't know, but that's just your brain not working, I guess, like not really paying attention. But no,
it makes
what do you say?
It makes a lot of sense. The reason I think of it, especially in this draft, we've seen a heap of players drop like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spots below where I think they should have gone. And we definitely would have been able to pick them up if we were drafting in the middle. But because we're drafting on the turn, they don't get anywhere near us. They end up going like 5 or 6 picks before us. Just makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I mean, what's the drawback there? Like, if we were picking fourth, like we take it's stochastic, of course. I don't join stochastic. The drop off is Chase to Jefferson, which could be negligible. Like Chase is obviously the better fantasy prospect right now, but I don't know if that's gonna be like that much of a difference. So that's the only trade off here. You get a better pick here, and then we might lose out on Chase Brown, but if we lose out on Chase Brown, we can take maybe Bucky Irving falls to here. Maybe we get Jackson Smith and Jigba, as we mentioned before. You're right. Like I'd rather draft at 4 than at 1, like for sure. It just doesn't feel like you get more bang for your buck, and it really depends on who's first. Like I don't know if you were covering fantasy when LaDainian Tomlinson was like the top pick for like 5 years in a row, but it just felt like whoever got the top pick would automatically win their league just because LaDainian Tomlinson was so much better than everyone else. But anyway, we're up soon. We could take it through a quarterback. I'd rather not right now. There's Tootin, Garendo. I love Garendo. There's Benson, Eckler, Tank Bigsby, Algier. So we need a fourth running back. Our sixth receiver or seven. No, we already have 6 receivers. You could probably pass on them unless you like anyone. There's Thielen, Brown, Besh, Quentin Johnson, McMillan, Robinson, Dubs, Tillman. I know you like Tillman. Maybe we can get him later. And then tight end, we have Loveland, Kraft, Kincaid, Likely, Goddard, Zacher as Pitts. So who are you taking here as we wait for
you're right. I do love Tillman. Tillman is my next receiver off the board. Quarterback's interesting. I think Anthony Richardson, for example, is he still around? I thought he was.
We can get him. We can get him much later. He's ADP is 191.
Okay, easy.
Yeah. All right, where Goddard just went, so we're up.
Tight end. My next tight end is like Frymouth, who I feel like goes later as well. I feel like there's heaps of guys I like that are going to go later, like a Frymouth and a Strange, as well. So I'm nearly inclined to go Garendo. I know how much you love him, and I agree. I feel like there's upside there. I think this is a good range to be getting those upside guys like Charbonnet's probably gone, but like your Garendos, like a Ray Davis, for example, guys that are going to give you that upside if they hit. They've suddenly become really good value here.
Okay, well, we have one more pick right now. Do you want to take another running back? There's Tootin, Benson, Eckler, Bigsby, Algier, Doodle, Wright, Chubb, Roshan, Braylon Allen. Who do you like?
No Ray Davis here, I assume.
Someone got took on my yeah.
Okay, I take Tyler Algier.
Okay, I like that too. Algier, both Algier and Garendo just have an insane upside. Like it really, like if the starters ahead of them get hurt and McCaffrey's big injury risk, like these guys could produce on a round 2-3 level. Like if McCaffrey and Bijan went down tomorrow for the year, like where do you think Garendo and Algier go?
I mean, for me, Garendo's going like late first, early second for me. Like I like him that much. I feel like he's near lock to be a top 10 running back. Algier probably goes a little bit later because you have to feel like they're going to bring in someone else if it's for the season. But I still think that he's probably going in the third or fourth round at least.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think with Algier, maybe late second, early third, like around where Bucky Irving's going, or Bucky Irving went like 303 in this draft. I'd say around there, and I think Garendo goes early second, mid second, stuff like that. So Tillman unfortunately just went. He usually goes like round 15. We have 6 receivers though, so we're not like really hurting there. We had a question though. Do you like Jennings or Ricky Pearsall more? Comparing both last few games, Ricky did better in fantasy. What are your thoughts there? And let's just say where they went. Jennings went 607 and Pearsall went 805. So who do you like more?
I mean, I personally, I think they're both going too early. Because you've got Kittle and McCaffrey around, I feel like you're unlikely to get value for both. And I think if Ayuk comes back healthy, he's going to be ahead of both of them as well. I do still prefer Jennings over Pearsall. I think Jennings wasn't 100% down, 100% healthy, and Pearsall was definitely emerging. I think this season I have them very, very, very close, but I do think that Jennings is higher for me.
Okay, I in a vacuum, I like Jennings more, but in reality, it's whoever is going later. Like I like Pearsall more 805 than Jennings in 607. But if Pearsall is going 607 and Jennings is going 805, I would like Jennings. So it depends on what you get. I think Jennings 607 to me a little too early. He was going round 7 recently. It was as far as back as like a month and a half ago. So I drafted him a lot there. Pearsall I'm drafting more now that he's going around 8. I like Pearsall more than you. He was my number 1 sleeper last year until he got shot, which is obviously an issue. But I think that he could be a really good receiver, and plus we don't know. There's definitely downside if Ayuk comes back and is healthy and McCaffrey stays healthy all year. But I think there's a good chance that one of them misses significant time this year. And if that happens, then Pearsall's going to look pretty good. And if both of them miss significant time, which could happen, I think he and Jennings could have big seasons. So I think that while the floor is low, I think the ceiling is pretty high too.
For me, whenever you get this situation where you get a stud running back, a stud tight end, and 2 or 3 stud receivers, you either need the quarterback to have an amazing season or one of them's going to bust. And in every situation I can remember, it's nearly always one of them busting when the quarterback's not elite. And I don't think Brock Purdy is elite. And I feel like the players that are most likely to bust are the wide receivers, because Kittle is still clearly the number 1 receiver for me over each of those 3 individually. And McCaffrey is just an absolute stud who they're going to use constantly. So I would personally just be avoiding the 49ers wide receivers entirely.
Yeah, you know what? I think that I kind of a train of thought. I just saw Pat Fryermuth, fourth overall player here. So I hope we get him. With George Kittle, you mentioned that he was good value for 1. I agree. Okay, we're up now. Let's talk about our picks, and then I'll get back to that. I assume you want Pat Fryermuth here. We don't need it. We don't have a tight end, so we can take him. Otherwise we have 2 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, 6 receivers, and no tight ends outside of Fryermuth. So Richardson, I think he's still going to be there on the way back. Okay. So we don't need to take him. Running backs, we have Doodle, Chubb, Johnson, Braylon Allen, Kareem Hunt, Will Shipley, Justice Hill. So we'll take Fryermuth now. And then receiver, we have McMillan, Hopkins, Palmer, Pat Bryant, Douglas, Noel. At tight end, if we want to take another tight end, Gesicki, Otten, Taylor, Chiggy, Bang, Bang. Who do you like here?
I feel like we can get Richardson and Brenton Strange later. And I like both of them. So I'll be looking at Strange later. So for that reason, I'm probably going running back, grabbing the Jets guy. Where is he? Or Shipley.
We ran out of time, and it gave us. I thought we clicked Shipley. It gave us Geno Smith. It gave us Geno Smith. I swear I clicked Shipley in time. Yes. I should have started him.
Yeah,
rookie mistake.
Start.
Yeah, we should have started someone. Brenton Strange went. He went 14-10. He just
Oh,
went.
wow. Okay.
Geno Smith's whatever. Maybe we can get Thornton. I know you're not as high on Thornton, but that's at least a stacking option.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, my thoughts on Kittle. I think that he could have and I'm curious to hear your opinion. I think he could have a season similar to Travis Kelce in 2022. You know, Kelce just went insane that year, and I think that with Ayuk just being very shaky to play early on and maybe the entire year, and Debo gone. I think that Kittle could just like have an insane season. Like, and what if McCaffrey gets hurt too? You know, like what if Kittle's just the only guy there? Like, it was outside of Jennings and Pearsall. Like, do you think that's a possibility?
I do really think that's a possibility. We know the 49ers just have issues with injuries. I don't know if it's something to do with their conditioning or how they train or the fact that they live in a relatively hot climate. I'm not sure, but they do tend to get more injuries to their offensive weapons than the average team does. And I have looked into studies, and it's a legit thing. So I'm not sure if that makes a difference, but I can't imagine that's so statistically significant we can rely on it. I do think, though, that Kittle is someone that I really like in fantasy. I just think, like you said, the upside's huge. We do know that he is the only real reliable veteran receiver on their team, and they're going to rely on him. So I feel like there's a good chance that he ends up being the number one tight end this season, even over Bowers.
Yeah, I do. I think so too. I currently have him a third in my rankings on the site, but I'm definitely going to move him up to two when I update, which will be after this weekend because the NBA draft is tomorrow night actually, and then round two is Thursday night. I don't know. I don't know how if you're into the NBA at all. It just feels like too soon after the finals. Finals just ended. Like we get like a 2 week break or something for the draft. I don't know. Although the off season is short, so.
I really only follow kids that went to my school in the NBA, and that's it. And there's only a couple of them. So if there's an Australian being drafted, I'm excited, but I don't think that's likely this
year. Who went to your school from Australia?
Cameron Bairstow played for the Bulls a few years ago. McDowell White brothers, I taught that they were playing like G League and stuff like that. They're now back in the Australian League. Okay. Who else? There's one other I can't remember. We had a few.
Okay. Well, Shipley just went. I was really hoping he'd come around. It would be destiny. We do need another running back. We only have 5. A quarterback, Richardson's still there. If you want to take a fourth quarterback, I'm going to start some players. Any running backs, receivers stand out?
Is Keenan Allen still there?
Keenan Allen, yeah, he is there. Yeah.
I like Keenan Allen. I like DJ Giddens as an option. If we're thinking running backs who could end up being useful with an injury ahead of them, they're the two guys that stand out for me.
Okay, I'm gonna start Rashard Smith as well because you're on the show, so we have to take Rashard Smith based on
that's true.
Kiwi's recommendation. So you would take Allen over at Thornton?
Yeah, I would. I feel like the upside's higher.
Okay, we will take Keenan Allen. We have our next pick here. We have 7 receivers already. So look at tight. I know we look at tight ends. We have Taylor, Schultz, Johnson. Anyone else stand out to you here? Or do you want to take Richardson?
I think we take Smith, and then actually we could probably wait on Smith, can't we?
Yeah, I think we can wait too. So
in that case, probably makes sense to go tight end here. I think. You said Mason Taylor's there. I'd probably take Taylor.
Okay, so we're going to take Taylor. We got the pick in this time.
Nice.
Okay, so we have 2 tight ends now. We have 3 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, 7 receivers, 2 tight ends. Yeah, we passed on Richardson. I think if he comes back, it's like too much value not to take him. So we should probably do that. But I do want to take Rashard Smith at 18-12 or 19-01. And also our third tight end. Who else do we have start here? We have Giddens, Thornton, and Smith. Okay. I don't think Thornton's going to come around, but just based on where he's been going. Io Manor goes. We talked about him. We talked about Sampson as well. Miles Sanders, what a waste of a pick that is. Like, talk about like 0 upside.
That's not even the Cowboys homer either. You'd expect it from him.
I know. That guy's probably like, wait, I thought I could get Sanders here. What happened? He actually hasn't taken a Dallas player in a long time. He took wait, where is he? Okay, he's this big. Yeah, he took Blue, and then so he took. Okay, so he's taking some like real players now. Naylor, Michael Wilson, Yushevich, Ertz, Tillman. He was the guy who took Tillman, by the way. Leggett, Watson. Actually, like this is not bad. Like it's like he turned into a real draft. Oh yeah, not good, but it's not bad either.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was doing earlier. He's probably drunk or something. Still wasted $20, but.
I have seen people who've queued up a heap of quarterbacks and then gone away and then come back and ended up with 5 quarterbacks. Like that could have happened, but that doesn't explain the Dak and Pickens thing at the start.
Yeah, maybe he queued up all the quarterbacks, we didn't order them. Like he just saw Prescott. He's like, "Oh, I love Prescott. I'm a Dallas fan." And then he just like queued up all the other quarterbacks or something. That doesn't explain Pickens either. Oh no,
Rashard Smith just went. Rashard Smith. Terrible news.
We should have just went with him instead of Mason Taylor. That's my fault. I'll take the blame for that one. Maybe Giddens will come back. We do need a 6th running back. A running back I've been targeting, not Richardson. A running back I've been drafting a little bit here is Keaton Mitchell, like round 18, 19.
Ooh, yes.
You like him too. Yeah, because he can go the distance anytime he touches the ball. It's insane. I think that like a running back like that in best ball at the end of the draft is pretty good.
I think everyone's forgotten he existed. Oh, now Higbee's gone. It's all going wrong.
What is happening? This draft is ruined.
Is Taysom Hill still around?
We got Geno Smith. Yes, I think so. Yeah, usually doesn't go till around this time. No concern with the torn ACL. I take it.
And there's always concern, but we're in the 18th round.
Yeah, that's true. Thornton goes. I don't think we have any start players anymore. I believe that to be true. Let me see. Yeah. Oh, we have Giddens. Okay, we still have Giddens. Okay, so we need what we absolutely need is a 6th running back and a 3rd tight end. We have 3 picks left. What is that?
I don't mind Marshall Lloyd here. I actually didn't notice him earlier. I feel like he's pretty good value.
Okay, yeah, talk to me about him. It's not someone I've drafted really.
I just feel like he's probably the number 2, and I feel like if there's an injury to Josh Jacobs, it's probably Marshall Lloyd who becomes the number 1. We didn't really get an opportunity to see it last season, but I feel like he's likely to be healthy this season. He's surely behind Chris Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson, so I don't know. I feel like there's some upside there.
Yeah, I agree. There's upside. I just wonder, like, I'm just kind of confused by the running back depth chart, the Packers, because it felt like they had a different RB2 like every time. Giddens goes. We have no one left on our start list. We're up to Keaton Mitchell goes too. What is happening? All right, we have Marshawn Lloyd. We're going to take him as our 6th running back, and we need a 3rd tight end. I like Theo Johnson a lot. I think he is upside, but then you said Taysom Hill too. So do you want to go?
I also like Arroyo. I think Arroyo is not bad value here because he's at least going to be act as a receiver for them. I don't love Theo Johnson, but I understand where you're coming from. I wouldn't be mad if you thumped your fist for Theo Johnson at this point.
I've drafted a lot of Theo Johnson, so we can. It's not the 80% Tyler Higbee, but I have. Do you want to guess my percentage of Theo Johnson ownership?
Oh gosh, I mean, you're taking so much Tyler Higbee that surely you can't have that much Theo Johnson. So it's got to be like, I don't know, 40% or something.
And close. It's 38% actually. You went a little over.
Hey.
Nice. Yeah. So we have Tyler Higbee. We don't have Tyler Higbee. Taysom Hill instead of Tyler Higbee. We have Marshawn Lloyd. And by the way, I just noticed this. We have, I think, too many week 5 running backs. We have Swift and Jacobs. That's 2. We have Algier is 3 and Lloyd is 4. So we're only going to. I think we need a 7th running back who's not week 5 by. Go ahead.
I didn't notice that we handcuffed ourselves twice as well.
Oh yeah, which I don't like to do in best ball. I like to do that. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've mentioned that a lot here on my show. What do you think about like handicapping or handcuffing your own players?
I generally just take the best player available and totally ignore that side of things, but I don't play a lot of best ball. I feel like in most leagues, most of your bench players are going to be off your team by week 8 or 9 anyway. So I don't think about bye
Yeah.
weeks and I don't think about who I'm handcuffing. But in this situation where it's best ball, I feel like you need to consider it a little bit more carefully. If you're going for a safe floor, I feel like handcuffing your players is logical. But if you're going for ceiling, which we are in this case, I feel like it's not the greatest idea.
Yeah, I think it's a really bad idea for best ball, just because you need to go for the ceiling. Like the goal isn't to win. If you get to the playoffs here and lose in the first round, like this is a $20 entry fee. We're gonna win $30, so $10 profit. Like that's not the goal. The goal is to win $2 million or at least 500,000, which is fourth place. Like it's to have the insane upside. And I think if you take your own handcuff, that's just really limiting your upside. It raises your floor, but who cares about your floor? You want the upside. Like
Yeah.
taking other players' handcuffs, I think that's the way to go because not only do you strengthen your team, you worsen the other teams. And because the classic example is if you take McCaffrey in round one and then you take Orendo, like, yeah, you're going to have 49ers production no matter what at running back. But, if McCaffrey goes down, yes, you'll have Orendo, but you also won't have your first round pick, whereas other people will still have their first round pick. And so you'll be hurt in that regard. So I really think that it's a big mistake to take your handcuff here, especially in best ball. I don't even like it in regular fantasy, but at least it's at least safer there, and you're not really going for insane upside. But here, this is all upside. Like this is $20 to potentially win $2 million, not $20 to win $30.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And if I'd remembered we'd taken Jacobs, I wouldn't have suggested Lloyd in the first place.
Yeah, I've done that a little bit. I usually catch it, but if I'm watching my kids and I'm distracted, my kids are at the age where like one starts playing with the toy, the other one will want it, and then there's like this my daughter starts crying. She's not even 2 yet, so she'll start crying. Then I have to yell at my son because it's my daughter is just like this angel, like that's how I'm at dad right now. And then my son starts crying because I'm yelling at him, and so like when I'm doing these basketball drafts, they're like $3. Like I usually forget like who I draft. Uh, but no, I do try to keep that in mind. It's just hard when you're talking and drafting at the same time. We're up in 6 picks. We have to figure out who we're drafting here. I want a running back not on week 5 buys. So I wish you could X out players. You can. So
could you do Mostert? He's probably still going to be involved by week 5.
That's true. Yeah, we can do Mostert. I was about to say Monagai is interesting, but he also has a week 5 buy, and we have Swift, so that's another handcuff. Anyone else? Let's scroll down a little bit. There's Phil Maffa. There's Singletary. It's funny Singletary's going so late in Scatterbo.
Zach Moss is probably technically. I think he's probably more the handcuff than Taj Brooks.
Yeah. You like the Woody Marks, but like you said, Chubb's there. Yeah.
I mean, I still think he's going to be okay, but he's got no upside, and that's what we're going for.
Yeah. I don't really see anyone.
Kendra Miller? I think I saw Kendra Miller there.
Kendra Miller? Let's see. Yeah, there he is.
I feel like he's probably the starter if Kamara goes down. I think there's more upside there season long than there is with anyone else.
More than Mostert? Because, Genty goes down Mostert. Mostert's the Thunder, apparently.
But because Mostert's never going to be an every down back no matter what happens, whereas if Kamara goes down, then Kendra Miller suddenly becomes the every down back, I think.
Okay. All right. You sold me. Let's go Kendra Miller. So let's just make sure the bye week is, week 11.
Gotcha.
What if we took another week 5 running back? All right, Kendra Miller. Let's just say I didn't really show round 20 because we were looking at the players. So round 20 goes Short Sanders. Predictably goes round 20. He sometimes goes around 19, 18. I don't understand. We talked about that before. Tank Dell's not going to play all year. Why draft him? A lot of weird picks late here. Mechie may not be on the team, but that was the guy who took all those. That's the guy who took all those Dallas players. Restrepo is kind of interesting, but not really. And anything else? Anything late here stand out to you at all, or
Where's Arian? Like, I don't even see someone like an Arian Smith. I don't see an Amari Cooper.
it's
Like
undrafted?
guys like that have so much more upside than nearly everyone taken in the last 5 rounds.
Yeah, you know what? If we didn't need a running back at the end, I would have. I think we would have taken Arian Smith, and that would have been the best pick in the final round. In fact, probably the penultimate round as well. Though Corum has a lot of potential, depending on what happens there. And you don't like Theo Johnson. I like him more. It's funny that like Malachi Corley went 1904, whereas like Arian Smith would have been a much better pick there.
I feel like people are just auto drafting by this stage a lot of the time.
That's definitely true. And then like at that point, like why pay the $20 if you're just gonna throw away the final few picks? Like enter the $3 league where it doesn't really matter, but whatever. Let's review our team before we head out. So we went with a Bengals stack. We have Chase, Brown, and Burrow, which is nice. And then our other receivers are Sutton, Addison, Ayuk, Pittman, and Coleman, and then we took Keenan Allen late. Our running backs are Josh Jacobs, Chase Brown, DeAndre Swift, a great trio, I think. And then we have some upside guys like Garendo, Algier, Marshawn Lloyd. Our tight ends we took late with Freiermuth, Taylor, and Hill. And our quarterbacks are Joe Burrow, and then we don't really need much after that, right? And then we took Justin Herbert, and the computer gave us Geno Smith, which I protest. I swear I took Shipley instead of Geno Smith. So we took Shipley here. We definitely would have gotten Richardson here, right? He was still available, I suspect.
Yeah, he was, yeah. Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Where did Richardson go? Oh, 17-11. Yeah, we would have gotten Richardson 17-1 instead of Mason Taylor. So how it would have gone is we took Shipley here. We would have still taken Allen. We would have taken Richardson here. And then I guess we wouldn't have needed Marshawn Lloyd. We still could have taken him. And then actually, you know what? It probably would have been we would need another tight end. So we probably would have taken Arroyo and Hill. And then with our 20th pick, because we didn't need a non-week 5 running back, I think we would have taken Arian Smith. So that's how it would have panned out. So any final thoughts on this draft?
I actually quite like it. I think outside the handcuff issue, and to be fair, I don't even hate the Geno Smith pick. Like, he's not terrible value there. Ultimately, he's got a whole heap of new wide receivers in there. He's got Brock Bowers. Genty can receive out of the backfield. He could be a really good sneaky value getting in the 15th round. Like, I don't hate that at all. I didn't realize he doesn't have the upside of Richardson, but I feel like he's still got plenty of upside, certainly more than most of the other guys going around there.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's posted good stats at times in Seattle, so he could definitely do that with the Raiders. I don't mind him at 15-1 either. By the way, the guy who took all those quarterbacks and Cowboys players, he only had 2 running backs. His running backs are Jaden Blue and Cam Scatterbo. So, congrats, 2 guys we talked about. Maybe he listened to our show and is like, "You guys are wrong. These 4th round, 5th round running backs are going to work out." So maybe that's where he stands. He was listening to the show the whole time. That's how he knew to screw with us here.
He definitely made a statement. I'll say that much.
Yeah. All right.
He just watched Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and he just can't help himself now.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching, commenting. Really appreciate it. Ben, do you want to talk about ffdfantasyfootball.com once again, or plug anything else?
Absolutely. So a couple of things to check out. Firstly, my YouTube site, where I'm breaking down all of the stuff you've already seen as well, plus getting into my redraft rankings will be the next set of videos out in the next week or 2. Plus, I also do personalized rankings. You can check out the rankings on the site, and they're good. They might be the best, but it would be even better to have rankings that are specifically for your league. So if you're in a league with some slightly unusual settings, or you just want to know how to win your specific league, for a very small fee, I will personalize rankings, tell you what to take in each round and how to draft, make it personalized specifically for your exact situation, and even for your pick if you like. And in history, in the last couple of years, most people who've done that have had a lot of success. They've had people winning leagues for the first time. It's been a really good time. So hit me up on Instagram or Twitter, or email me at benwasley23@gmail.com, and I will arrange personalized rankings for your league.
I've mentioned this many times. Ben is ranked in the top 10 consistently in the in-season rankings, and I mean, as you can see on the screen here, it's a lot of awards, just throughout. So definitely check out ffdfantasyfootball.com and also his YouTube page, where I believe that might take you to the YouTube page, or it'll just take the videos. But Ben is also on YouTube as well, so you can check him out there and subscribe to him. Always love having you on the show, Ben. Hope you have more holidays coming up so you can come on as a guest once again. But yeah, so yeah, guys, thanks so much once again. No show Wednesday and Thursday because of the NBA draft. I'll be busy grading every pick. We'll be back on Saturday though with Tom, and then next week we have a full slate of shows. So it's kind of make up for it. So yeah, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description of the merch store. And Ben, once again, thanks for coming on. Always love having you on the show. All right, guys, have a great night, and I will talk to you on Saturday.